whack. Goddamn, you're already here. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Carl. Yeah, try to be punctual about things.
If only this was a quality that was shared by accomplices and acquaintances of our own.
Maybe it's a Canadian thing.
I'm visualizing 4 people in my mind. One of them is fat and Canadian.
I don't know who the other 3 are, but,
Well, the other 3 actually show up when I ask them to do something, usually.
Oh.
The only thing that prevents them is sickness and other obligations, which I'm never angry about.
Yeah, fair enough.
If it does not bother the people who are still gathering here, so they'll have to be reminded throughout the entirety of the evening, will be for my own sanity playing Exile. However,
no worries.
If you do not mind, do you mind playing back the debate from the beginning and projecting your screen so that I can then use that as the screen for people's context?
Yeah, you got a link for it you can send me?
I do.
That would be cool. For my own bandwidth's sake, I'll play it on my little screen and on my big screen.
So it's like, I'm not trying to...
Where's the shit? There's videos, lives. Here we go. I find it interesting he chose to use Asmongold's face for the thumbnail, but whatever.
I think that's because it gets the shit libs riled up,
I mean, use his name, put him on the thumbnail somewhere, but shouldn't you be putting the actual people who are talking about the subject in the thumbnail? That's just me.
That's the link. No.
Oh, it's right here, inside of live broadcast.
Oh, there's a chat.
There are chat rooms inside of the voice chats, yes. This is a feature that many people do not realize works. It actually saves you from having to use multiple chat rooms as a chat room for voice chats unless you, put it ostentatiously in another place that, doubles as an offline voice chat.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
There you go. And for my own sanity, I did not look at the comment section of his video. Although, surprisingly, he does not get that many views as I would have expected on his live streams, considering it's a very focused audience. Actually, he's
Whick?
not... Yeah, Whick TV. His channel is actually not that much bigger than mine. But I guess the live views is not the same as the post-live views.
Can you see the video?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Is there audio?
There is audio, yes.
Okay, sweet. Let's see. I guess we could just let it play from the beginning while we wait for people to show up.
Yes, you can do that. I'm just configuring it to my liking for the OBS.
Right on.
But yeah, I'm actually surprised by the amount of views that Whick actually has, yet the amount of actual sway he holds in his sector of the internet. To say that it
well,
is...
There's not a lot of people that are willing to do what he does, I think, is part of it. And also, he does get surprisingly big names. Like the other day, that stream with Dev having, Enrique Tarrio on it, that guy's, obviously infamous in a big way,
I'm not aware. Inform me.
Enrique Tarrio was the leader of the Proud Boys when they stormed the Capitol on January 6th.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so that's kind of that's like national headlines level, people. Pretty interesting, I thought.
Okay. I mean, for what it's worth, since all the other places that basically serve less than internet blood sports withered away and died, he's the only one who's left.
Right.
And I think the only person before him that technically... He wasn't actually internet blood sports, but he actually did try to focus on making people into meaningful debaters, but every single time he'd have a fucking championship, it always somehow floated into personal attacks, was Dylan Burns. Because after I saw him postpone indefinitely Hippy Dippy, when he started doing his actual war reporting, you saw them basically dry up like fucking raisins. Because they didn't have a place to go to basically antagonize people anymore. At least that's in my view. Because there's different names that have been spread around to me that I've heard. Like the Ask Anything community, obviously the Taliban amongst Destiny, which is now dried up because they don't want to be standing next to Sex Epstein, quote unquote.
Right.
Welcome. What and all. Yet again, everybody.
I'm going to boost the audio in this.
Whick TV. It's across
That's a little quiet.
space. We come together to talk about
I usually don't have stream audios all the way up inside of Discord. I'm just jacking it. You don't have to do anything on your end.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Lots happening at a breakneck pace.
And my audio's not bad.
We always have some time for some culture war slop. Okay, we always have some time for this. Okay. If you guys missed it, Saturday we had an excellent discussion about the Venezuela strikes. You should go look at that. We got some stuff on the Somalian fraud coming up, but today we're going to be talking about, has feminism and women ruined gaming?
Pause.
Gold recently has claimed that they have.
All right.
So, when he says, have women ruined feminism and gaming, I literally answer this every single time throughout the discussion. But, definitively, as we asserted it, just for people who are not aware or are not in the Discord, click the link to be entered into the Discord. I'm scrolling up to it real quick, 1 second. Main chat room. And pinned comment. 1.
Damn.
The liberal capitalist corporate model is susceptible to infiltration. 2. Cultural Marxism and its children, particularly intersectionalists, are very aware of this. 3. Intersectional Marxists, Marxist feminists, and queer Marxists, referred to as wokes, have been intentionally working to infiltrate all of media to promote the message. 4. Initially, this being met with little to no resistance, as social media, and for a good while, was controlled by said wokes. 5. The control over social media allows for these things that were generally popular to be plastered across social media for several years. It is very important that this be affixed as Jack Dorsey's Twitter. A Jack Dorsey Twitter allowed for this plastering to exist for several years across social media, because it was kept in place by both the media figures, the influencers, and media watchdog and attack groups like Sleeping Dogs. Corporate profit-seeking, naturally seeing this as something to get ahead of to maximize profits and minimize losses. 6. Ergo, for a period, major corporations push the ideas ahead as being perceived as good for business. 7. These things are now proving actually unpopular, and the woke have lost control of social media and are facing a significant cultural backlash. 8. Woke shit is now being removed, but was for a time very prominent in the cultural dialogue, particularly in animation and video gaming, with the majority of woke politics being engaged in and pushed by women, with women being naturally collectivist, and also now form the majority of college students who also tend to be the most woke and thus have exposure to Marxist ideas. While women are not 100% responsible for woke in gaming, they are majority responsible. This was your dissertation, and this is basically kind of in line with my same self-evaluation dissertation that I had of my own opinions, with trying to direct them towards bullet points and a summary. Because the summary that I had, when I hear women and feminism ruined gaming, is the way that it is presented throughout the entirety of this debate was a 0-1-0 binary. Either all of gaming is ruined, or literally all these games! And every single time it was done, not a single example to the counterpoint of what I said was presented. Names were thrown out. Name-checking them. Name-checking video games throughout several genres between the AA, the AAA, the 4X, and the indie scene, without actually attributing how women did or didn't ruin it, and explicitly to the core of control and cultural rot. Because every time I explained it to them, I explained it as 3 points. You have the industry, you have the people that are subsumed to the ecosystem of the industry, and then you have the consumers, which also includes the shareholders, that all interact in this ecosystem very similarly to politics. You literally cannot function in the industry without functioning similar to a carbon footprint. If you can't stand,
There's got to be feedback.
yes, there has to be feedback.
You've got, with politics, you have the politicians, you have the voters, and then you have lobbyists. And in the corporate world, you have the corporations, you have basically also lobbyists. Like Sweet Baby Inc. and whatnot are basically lobbyists. And then you have the consumers who are filling the same niche in the political system as voters are. So it is a good allegory.
So, because it is one-to-one impossible for the system to exist and for people to absolve themselves of it, every single time I gave examples. Because I think, before he even started, the problem is that I allowed myself to assume that he must know. Because when I did the actual evaluation of his VODs, and of the material he said in response to the reaction he got from the internet from his VODs, I had to proceed, and I proceeded with the instance of, okay, here's information that is guaranteed that you cannot deny. If you deny this information, the actual numbers of the business, the actual names, the actual people, the instances. Surprisingly, I impressed myself that I didn't have to bring up Gamergate by name. I didn't have to do it. I mentioned Leigh Alexander, I mentioned key critical points in Gamergate 1, and Gamergate 2, and Gamergate 2.5, and Gamergate 3, but I never had to bring it up by name. Every single time.
So
Go ahead.
I do think this is a standard strategy, though. Like, this is where you always have to be prepared, like, with just like at least a little dossier to run down like the basics of what you're talking about, because I think it, like, especially like we're approaching this from this person being a shitlib essentially, right? And it is like shitlib 101 to feign ignorance of a topic in order to make discourse impossible or to make it seem ridiculous. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. How can I, how can you even say that? What does that even mean? Things like that. Just like basic refusal of understanding of simple concepts. So you really have to start out by basically building your entire knowledge base up brick by brick so that they can't actually refuse to acknowledge the basics of the topic itself.
Mm-hmm. And because I'm going in with this, so you're lying, okay, here's a clip from you saying exactly the thing that I'm talking about. But this, excuse me, but this relies Whick to play the clip. Because this is off the knowledge base of, this has been mentioned, this is all across the culture war, you cannot deny this happened. If you lie, here's you saying exactly what I'm saying verbatim. So are you lying then or lying now? My strategy completely gets shredded because Whick just sometimes decided in the background, no, I'm not going to play that clip. Or of the clips he did play, It's like, so we know this thing to be true from the scene, therefore, and extrapolating from there, none of that gets done because on one hand, yes, lying, but also, Irrelevant is a fucking retard who knows nothing about what he is talking about. Because he went in specifically with just Asmongold derangement syndrome. Because
I think part of it might be also like if you send a clip to Whick and he has to find I don't remember.
I gave him
exactly
timestamps.
You gave him timestamps. Okay, yeah. So I mean, on that regard, then there's no real reason why it shouldn't have been presented exactly where it needed to be.
The only time, the last clip that was necessary for, especially the breakdown of how the industry actually functions after the bubble burst from COVID, he specifically denied that one because he said the clip is too long. And sure, the clip is long, but through the entirety of the clip, the entire thing is Irrelevant sitting there basically he's trying to deny it, but he's not actually denying the evidence of the information. He says the clip is just glazing Asmongold. This is just incel talking points, blah, 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 blah. And it's from the Joe Rogan podcast interview with the head of that defense firm.
Right.
I'm trying to remember his name off rip, but I don't. He looks like a regular average skater dude. He explains it.
Not Tim Pool, right?
No, not Tim Pool.
You want to play the video?
I can, actually, yes. Well, actually, I can show.
Oh no, I meant.
Hold on.
Well, I meant like pressing play on the Whick thing.
Oh, I'm trying to recall the name of the person before.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
Well, trying to get all the mental things out of the way as we're going through it before we do.
Sure.
hitting bullet point as it comes up. I'm trying to remember the name of the defensive firm because it's really important. Because the Joe Rogan Experience podcast was basically the clip jumping off point that was necessary for like everything that was being described.
And this clip was reviewed by Asmongold.
Yes, this clip was reviewed by Asmongold on stream, verbatim. Let me grab blah.
Okay.
Trying to find the guy's name. Not him. Palmer Lucky, I believe is his name. Yes, Ondurial. There we go. The head of the defense technology company, Ondurial Industries, was breaking this down as a part of his 3-hour long piece. But the piece that he had that was played from the section that was being reacted to by Asmongold came from the clip, and that was the clip that Irrelevant was reacting to, which I can get from Asmongold's channel.
Okay.
Because at that point, it was reaction of a reaction to a reaction. Which came from... Women Ruined Video Games.
Not appealing to you. Like, for a white...
Which then, in the final bit, he was listening to, that starts from... like 13, 12, 11, further. It starts from like 7:39 on his VOD side. Right here. And here. Do I usually do these streams on camera or off camera? I usually do things like this on camera. I prefer it to be on camera. So the clip...
I'll go camera on if you like.
You don't have to if you don't want to, because I haven't focused on the content. But if you want to, by all means.
Gamer brain up to 11.
Sure.
Gaming used to be good.
Oh, we want to watch this.
Not the whole thing, because this is the first part is basically him reacting to himself being criticized by Destiny. The part that starts with Palmer Lucky starts at 7:32.
It's fine. Like I'm a believer in the free market generally. I'm a believer in capitalism strongly. But then the problem is you have this combination of capitalism-driven capture efforts combined with people who don't care about making money nearly so much as pushing their particular social ideals. Like,
The chuds are breaking containment. Bro, we're loose. We're loose now.
You've probably seen this in Hollywood. You certainly see it in the games industry, where you have people who are joining the industry not because they want to make great games, not even because they want to make money. And I'd say like making great games is the best.
Yeah, it's a vehicle for the message.
Making money is an acceptable
Second best reason.
It's because they want
The worst reason.
bring about greater equity and representation of
Yes, man.
people that look like them. And like that's fine to have as a thing in the back of your mind, but there's people who are joining where that is what they want to do.
That's exactly
and anyone who's
it.
against it, they're going to berate them. Anyone in the company who says, "I actually think we should make games for our customers, not the people you wish were our customers. Like let's make games for the guys who buy our games, not the moms who wish were buying our games." And people like that are being ejected out of companies.
They are, and nobody wants to do it because of toxic positivity. Who wants to be the guy that is the person who's the inhibitor that says maybe we shouldn't make this character non-binary? We already have 3 non-binary characters. You're gonna find yourself in HR tomorrow for a microtransaction, and out on your ass next week.
Microtransaction.
He meant to say microaggression, but it's funnier when he said. It's funnier that way.
Right dilemma, right?
Exactly.
It's not a dilemma, bro.
tried to make Bud Light for people who don't want Bud Light.
It's this
and
myth-
make fun of the Bud Light.
It's the mythical
Yes.
audience.
Yes.
It's a mythical
Yes.
mainstream audience. They say they.
Yes.
It's even worse in gaming because they'll say things like, oh, 50% of gamers are
50 are women, but they're all playing Candy Crush and these other bullshit games that aren't real. They're not real gamers. They're not playing Elden Ring. Yeah, there's like 6 girls that play Elden Ring, but there's not 10.
stay-at-home moms.
Exactly.
And you're like, what? That obviously isn't true.
It's not true.
And what
Of
it is
course.
it's something like there's a lot of stay-at-home moms who've played Candy Crush a few times.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And like there's a lot of them. And they're like, therefore we need to build to that market. Okay.
Oh my god.
Like I don't want to get into a fight over like what a gamer is, but what do you think sounds
I do. And yeah, what do you think? Yeah, think about this. Just think for a second.
like a better business plan? To go after the young men primarily
That's
who
right.
buy
That's
a
right.
dozen $50 games a year,
Yes.
or the mom who once spent $5 on Candy Crush. Like,
It's a joke. He's laughing at it because it's so fucking stupid. Joe Rogan doesn't. Joe Rogan apparently had to quit playing video games because he got so fucking addicted. So, but even he knows. He knows this shit.
And there's kind of, and if you say that, if you put it the way I just put it, they're like, that's so sexist of you. Why don't you want to bring in new audiences? I saw this when I saw this when I was in Silicon Valley. What I called it was, I said there's too many people who drink Starbucks and not enough who drink Mountain Dew. And you know,
Oh my god.
This guy
This
is
is our guy, man.
Palmer Lucky
Yes, Palmer
This
Lucky.
is our
Of
fucking
Andariel.
guy. Wow.
and Dario with an A.
Shit.
Yes.
know
Okay.
exactly what I mean when I say that. Like
Yeah.
it's
Exactly,
it's
yes.
just it's
Yes.
it's been a really bizarre thing to watch in all of these different industries.
Yeah, it's a mind virus. It's captured
Absolutely it is.
universities and then
100%.
it bled out into corporations.
One of my favorite questions to ask people is, starting a company is hard. You can't, you'll fail most of the time, even when you don't constrain yourself to trying to, change the social system. Like, look, if you could make it where there's all those moms all get into games and it was free, like that'd be great.
Here's the best thing about it is that the games that moms get into are like World of Warcraft. There are more soccer moms playing World of Warcraft than probably there are, like playing a lot of these other girl games. They're probably playing the new Call of
Hey,
Duty.
Brett.
Even there's that. Yeah, this is the thing on plain sight. Yeah, they won't admit. Everybody knows this.
But it's not. It's a trade-off, right? You have to take resources you would have put on your
Yeah.
customer, your real
Exactly,
customers,
yeah.
and put it towards them.
There's
One
an
question I
opportunity
ask
cost.
people is just ideologically.
Opportunity
is, okay,
cost.
Imagine your job is to build a corporate building for a company, and the company, you know exactly who they are. You know how many men there are. You know how many women there are. We don't have to say how many there are. Like, we're not. Don't make it about one gender.
Are you going to make it 50-50 instead of make it based off of the amount that there actually are? That's what he's going to say.
Versus another. It's just there are lots of men, there's lots of women. I won't pick a number. When you're designing this building, should you have the number of bathrooms that would best serve the actual
One thing that's sticking
gender
with me
makeup of
here,
the company
watching
that
this,
would allow them to use the bathroom and
after
get back to
watching
their
that,
business without waiting in
the
line?
debate,
Or
had anyone
would
at the
you do
debate
anything
actually
else?
watched this
Like, would you
video?
pursue a
Oh,
different
Relevant
strategy?
did. And
Like,
that's
the difference, like, what
and
would
that's the
be?
thing that
It's
fucked
like,
with me the
well, I
most.
would build it,
The
for
link I just
50-50.
put inside the
If they say,
chat,
well, that-
that's the timestamp that I gave Whick that he
Yeah,
didn't
that's
play.
fine. But if they say, well,
Man.
And you can start playing that if you wish
How
to.
about that?
I would.
Okay,
I would.
okay. So we'll take a look at this guy here.
Yes. Because if you hold this information in mind, because remember, I did all of this preparatory work ahead of time to go like to not just say, oh, I remember what he said in the clip. Which is why when he got to the end, he was like, no, that's not what I said on my tweet. It's like, the content of your tweet was literally the video that was gotten from Yeet. Not what you claim from the text. The actual content of the video was him fucking crashing out against these arguments being presented by Asmon and by Destiny. But then also this particular part here, it's like, you're lying! Nigga, why are you lying? Stop lying!
Capitalism strongly, But then the problem is you have this combination of capitalism-driven capture efforts combined with people who don't care about making money nearly so much as pushing their particular social ideals. Like,
now, notice the things that are being said by his chat room, which, from what I have studied, is his YouTube and his TikTok, his YouTube, his TikTok, as well as his Twitch being controlled and put together by Botrix. And notice what he isn't saying the entire time the clip's playing.
you certainly see it in the game.
Yeah, these people not realizing that games they grew up with were also political, but so ingrained that the stances were invisible. Yeah, like a great example. We watched a video on the game Wolfenstein. Anybody remember the game Wolfenstein? The literal anti-Nazi, anti-fascist game?
Pause.
I watched a video on it where it was going through the very...
All right, there you go.
So, when he does that, and he did that the entire debate, games having political themes, and none of them challenged me on my rebuttal about that, by the way. Games having political themes does not preclude the game being political. It is the point where it is politically proselytizing. Because every single time that you could have used the word woke when I was speaking on what I spoke on, I never said woke. I always said political proselytization. Because that's what actual pandering and antagonization on politics, as well as social issues, is. You're proselytizing to me. You're lecturing me.
Well, it's the reason why BioShock is considered, you know, a masterpiece, while Dustborn is considered an abject failure, right? Like, they both have heavy political themes, right?
Yes.
But BioShock doesn't subsume the gameplay and plot to the idea of conveying the message, quote unquote. It goes about actually doing things in an artful way, presenting, you know, Andrew Ryan's folly and the destruction of Rapture in a way that actually is entertaining and enjoyable to experience, and maybe, yes, a little bit thought-provoking, you know, as to the excesses of libertarianism and its vulnerabilities to bad actors. Whereas in a game like Dustborn just beats you over the head with it over and over and over again, and it's not enjoyable. That's, to me, the difference between, you know, woke, or as you call, or saying, you know, proselytizing versus actually conveying the message, a message, via art. I guess that's the difference between conveying a message and the message.
Yes. And a part of all of Irrelevant's points, every single time he says this about the arts, which is somewhere further ahead if it's not in this section, because I believe after he listens to this bit, he just basically gives up and he's like, oh man, you just swear, I'm gonna go debate people on TikTok, which is his main content, by the way. Trying to debate people who don't have debate skills. He keeps conflating that as though by putting politics into work, it automatically makes it art, therefore it is not subject to criticism for being bad at making its art, and therefore if it's bad, and it had made an attempt to do something that was about a narrative or a plot point. As I told him during the debate, Ontological Inertia, oh, it's not because they made an art piece that then tried to lecture you and then was bad because people rejected the message. No, that was the marketplace just not making enough money. They just made a bad game. They didn't go out of their way to basically beat you over the head with metaphor and with reason, or explicitly tell you, bro, you're the fascist. No, that was just the market. But keep going, keep going.
Various plot, like, points of the game, if that game was released today, Asmongold would say that is woke slop made by, like, trans femboys.
Which is cope.
Because there's
that is the giga cope
who's like, yeah, I hate fascists, and his head would explode just off of that. Those words alone would make his head explode, let alone the other context around the character. It's literally just a black woman character who hates Nazis.
It doesn't even have to be a black woman character. If a character or a story had plot points that were important to characters, then everybody would have had their head explode when they had to deal with things like Lara Croft. Everybody's head would have exploded when we deal with things like Amy Hennig and her writing. Looking Glass, System Shock, any of the old companies of old. But what hasn't? Because that's a lie, because it's scope.
And I'd say like making great games is the best reason.
Totally.
Making money is an acceptable
Second best reason.
It's because they want
The worst
to
reason.
bring about greater equity and representation
Ah, yes, man.
of people that look like them. And like that's fine to have
Oh
as
my
a thing in the back
God.
of your mind, but there's people who are joining where that is what they want to do.
That's
And
exactly
anyone who's
it.
against it, they're going to berate them. Anyone in the company who
Yep.
says, "I actually think we
This is such a level 1 analysis. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, the people who make video games with a social kind of commentary in mind might think that the game that they're making is good?
Pause.
And
That
that it has a social commentary.
So, right there, that's him immediately trying to reach for that argument inside of his own hovel with his own chatters. This is a level 1 analysis. A level 1 analysis that, for companies like Shirkana, these businesses exist to collate the data heuristics. It is Aiden, it's Aiden's fucking wet dream. Like, people being paid to look at the numbers that collate the actual buying power, not just of the marketplace, but of the investment of the shareholders. It is these calculations of why Embracer shuttered Volition and Deep Silver. It is this calculation of why Luminous was reabsorbed and its assets reused from what was left over from Final Fantasy XIII for Forspoken back into the company. Whether or not you say it's about the money, when it's really about the art, and whether or not the art produced money, this is a level 1 analysis. But nothing he said actually was backed up with evidentiary examples from things physically happening. You're just taking him, he expects you to take him at his word. And any amount of evidence that I had prepared to produce, no response to it. His own analysis is surface level, just as is his references. But he cannot go deeper, because it is my serious belief that this is an adopted opinion that he learned from someone else. Because of course it is. It's a very normie lefty position to take, but even worse is the fact that he is an elitist about how he does it. And, which was the thing that came from the quote. You ain't gotta play that quote from his earlier content, which is him saying that I'm gonna be an elitist to other people who are elitists about games. Because you don't actually play games, plural, you only play a game, singular. To which I then ask,
Right.
what do you say of the company of the game that I am currently playing that you also play? Grinding Gear Games literally founded this company because they made a better clone of Diablo 2 and have been improving it for 15 years straight. The quintessential definition, new recognized definition of what it means to play the genre of the RPGs in the blood of Diablo. According to your definition, people who literally did it for the culture, who did it to create art, who did it to insert both ideals and ideas and their own ontological inertia, according to him, they have a surface level read, despite the original founder, Chris Wilson, and his acolytes, the main ones that lead the company now, which is Jonathan and Mark. Jonathan being the base direct lead over Exile 1, and Mark being the lead over Exile 2, but they both work in tandem, because they're both the new bosses and shot callers. The company themselves, that he plays the game of, are definitively the counter-argument to his own analysis, including others that have demonstrated that over the years to be the case, including people like David Druckmann. I said David Druckmann. Neil Druckmann. Keynote speeches. Physical speeches. Kimball, Druckmann, fucking Bodycotic, etc. and more. Not just in games and entertainment, not just in games, but also in movie and entertainment, which includes people like Iger, and I guess also Kathleen Kennedy, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. To accept this is a level 1 analysis that is so simple that it doesn't actually involve things that are necessary for the business to work. But he cannot say anything other than, is it possible that the game's just bad because they made a bad game? As though people who have knowledge to know what makes a good game and what doesn't wouldn't listen to their customer base about what it is that they are requesting to hear and ask and get and then receive. As though they're just making it absent of the entire industry and of an ecosystem that when they talk, it talks back.
Well, I think part of it is, people in that kind of, lib left, like it's the farther end of lib left, circle. I think they genuinely think that if you insert what they view as popular politics into a video game, that makes the game good. You know, I mean, because they kind of treat all of their media this way. You know, it's like the rings of power and whatever else. What is it? The Last of Us. All of it. They kind of inject this into every single kind of media that they can get their hands on. So it's kind of a assumption, I think, that they developed during COVID, that inserting their politics makes a game good, you know?
That is obviously fucking bullshit, Cope.
Well, it's obviously false, you
Yes.
know? Like I think it's been pretty well proven that when they insert their politics into the games, it actually has the opposite effect. I'm not sure, how anyone came. Actually, no, I know exactly how. The only reason that it appeared during COVID that it made games popular was because these companies were deriving what was popular in the social sphere from what was going on social media, and social media during the COVID era was completely captured by the left.
Mm-hmm. There was literally a tweet today or I don't know when it was posted, but I found it today. There was a tweet that was posted from the Boys account for the TV show on Amazon Prime, where there was a reply from actual recognized culture warrior Mighty Keith that usually battles against the woke and the anti-woke on Twitter, saying this show is no longer good because it just talks about modern politics. And then the show responded back to his tweet. I'm gonna go find it. Responded back to his tweet by saying, nope, always has been. So let me go get that. You don't have to take my word for it.
Sure.
Here we go. So, here is the person who is talking about the tweet. Here is the person. I can see that there are people standing by and waiting. Give me a second because I don't have all my mods here on standby. I have to do it manually myself. Here is the tweet from the Boys where it said it's been a documentary for a while. Meaning every time they've written about contemporary politics on the Boys, it is them implicitly making a show that's supposed to be satirical from fiction into a reflection of contemporary politics. And then the tweet from the Mighty Keith. Okay, I see the struggle. Welcome, Struggle Bus. I saw another person by the name of Brett9792 come in, and that person has left now. I don't know what to tell you. If you're not patient enough to be welcomed to the room, you don't get the ability to speak. That's how it works.
I'm not going to open it on Twitter because Twitter wants to show my email to everyone.
No problem, no problem.
So I don't want to dox myself.
Let me get your screen cap of the thing then. 1 second. So, here is Keith's tweet. If that copy pasted. No, I did not. Welcome, Struggle Bus. So here is the Keith's tweet. This is the tweet from the Boys. And then this was the tweet from the account that noticed this and spoke specifically about this, as well as a tweet from Eric Kripke.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
So I find it interesting that the idea of including politics in the game automatically makes it good in art, because wouldn't that then fall under the example of what many people have been saying about bad art and good art? That if you can have art that is capable of achieving the goal of saying something while still delivering good content, that is demonstrable of something that is a media darling amongst consumers as much as the industry, and that when you have the industry only ever speaking on the content as reflective of people actually enjoying it only in the industry, like they have with things like the Neo Worlds Ends With You and Metaphor Refantasio, as compared to, say, the normal personas, as well as the normal SMTs, as well as the original World Ends With You, and its port to the Switch, that this is the difference between what is good and what is bad. Because I'm pretty sure, especially if people have played it, they love the gameplay of Neo Runs With You, but they hate the fucking dialogue from it. There are people who probably love the bits of gameplay that you can find in all of the movie games, but hate and reject the politics of the people that are actually presented on camera. Especially the case of God of War, Ragnarok. But we'll save that for when we get to that point in the after show of the debate. Because I have lots to say about that. But yeah, I find it interesting that somebody would have this perspective. Because what argumentatively is good about it? That your politics are being spoken back to you? Isn't that them not actually demonstrating what's good about your politics, but them just simply giving you what you want? Which means that they are politically pandering to you, as much as they could be mercantilistically pandering to you? Like, is that the problem of the marketplace? Is that a problem of the industry? Is that a problem of the consumers? Is that a problem of, as many of them kept saying, the Jews? Like, whose fault is it that you put your politics in the game and that made the game bad? At what point in the ratio of good gameplay, good mechanics, good story, bad narrative, do I now get to say your game is dog shit because of it?
Well, I mean, more often than not, it's also bad gameplay combined with bad narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's very rare that a game comes out that is basically been given over to the message, quote unquote, where they actually put any effort into the gameplay. They put the entirety of their effort into conveying their politics, and none of their effort into actually making the game worth playing. Which is kind of the problem. Like, you could probably get away with a game with a super woke narrative if it was really, really fun to play. Like, a lot of people, or well written. I think a lot of people would probably completely be willing to ignore an annoying narrative if the gameplay itself is really fun. Actually, an example of that would be the entire Borderlands series. Basically.
Yes. Lord have mercy.
Lord
have mercy.
They're very fun games. But I mean, they have always been kind of woke.
Mm-hmm. Like, the factor of the thing, because I swear to God, the Borderlands franchise, from 1 to 3, which basically includes, like, 5 games, if you include the standalone Assault and the pre-sequel. Those 5 games are a time capsule of the Redditor attitude that's like, this is maudlin and irreverent, and yet it's telling a story that will captivate you, and even if you're not paying attention to the story, haha, gun go burr. And for many people, even the writers, especially with in-jokes and the actual memes that were created about well-known bugs, including The Ledge, it is all written from the perspective of a person that is able to understand why the game is fun and why the writing is looked at as good, but also, it is also demonstrable of exactly that niche of presentation becoming infuriating over the years, as it was overdone by everybody else who copied it. So
even when you get to, by the time you get to Borderlands 3, like, I think that was something people, like, a lot of people turned off from it because they were like, the storyline is so obnoxious. Like the villains are just they're presented to you as if you're supposed to like them or something, and there's no likability for them at all, I think. And and it got to a point where even Borderlands 3, even Borderlands, I should say, in general, which was always kind of a woke game, went maybe too far in the annoying millennial quippiness. But I don't think that had necessarily to do with the wokeness of it.
Mm-hmm. I would say that over the years, when we started looking at this coming up things like Life is Strange, and the many Tales of game and Tales from games, like the Tales games for Walking Dead, as well as for Borderlands, this is where you started seeing a lot more of that cultural rot setting into the writing. Because quintessentially, even though we all make jokes about him, and his sister, for that matter, the game would not have its writing if it were not for the writing essentials of the nepotism siblings, Ashley and Andrew Birch. Because it is his writing that is basically the soul of this maudlin, irreverent design. but it's also a part of the reason why it becomes annoying, especially when you bring up the writing of the third game, because the first two games were sold on your affinity to your player characters. And they started the tradition of the last characters from the game become living characters with personalities of their own, starting from the second game, with the core crew that came in from Borderlands 1. And then they repeated the same thing again in Borderlands 2. I think the problem that happened there is that you have too many characters, and you don't have an actual character that you're meant to really have a care for to tie yourself to,
Right.
other than the character that they forced you upon, which was Lilith, because of the entire thing they wrote with the Sirens. But from
Maybe Handsome Jack.
like Handsome Jack was the case in 2 because he was the villain, and thus he was
Right.
all-consuming, and the core cast fighting against them then enhanced his villainy, because they were
Right.
people that were already important because you played them. And then as the plot sets out, this strong character holds the game holds it in its grasp, like all good villains do. Much like how they did with Far Cry 6, with casting Giancarlo Espinosa, making it quintessential, just like they did with the I think his name Vosh character or Vance character, the antagonist from Far Cry 3. To be this captivating character that allows you to actually bounce these ideas and these concepts off of him, so that the characters and the player have something to actually grasp onto. Since they're not just like voiceless characters as it was in Borderlands 1, where you could say it was a barely there plot, and then as they developed it with the DLCs, it allowed them to have more context, especially for additional side characters that become fixture mainstays, like Tannis. This way that they wrote them, and the way that they chose to investigate their views with them, completely fall apart in Borderlands 3, simply because they actually refuse to actually direct it towards something that is tied to someone's particular character. The Typhon de Leon twins, they are horrible villains because I don't
Right.
want to know more about them. But their father,
Right.
Typhon de Leon, he should have been one of the central figures. Like, we discovered the logs of the literal first Vault Hunter. We're gonna go discover the planet and go following along with what he did in his escapades. And then
Honestly, the twins should have been like, Dad puts them in their place and they go back to behaving, and then they move on focusing on him instead of them.
like, if you had to keep it the way that it was, they needed to use Typhon de Leon as a lead into his children, so that we learned the reason why they're rampaging. Like,
Right.
we're learning about Typhon de Leon, we learn about Typhon and his wife, and as we go through this story and go from planet to planet about their plan, both, especially after they end up killing the second Siren from 2, which I believe her name was Aya.
Right.
Ava is the second one. No, the third one that gets replaced by her. Someone can fact check me on that. Brain hurts. When the Siren from Borderlands 2 gets killed by the leeching abilities from the Typhon de Leon twins, it should have been, if they wanted it to still have them as main character personalities, they should have made it around this family plot involving them, and involving that Typhon's greatest secret was to hide the biggest vault that would have been responsible for the destruction of the known universe and knowledge for Vault Hunters, which, with the reveal of it being literally the entire planet of Pandora being a vault, would disqualify. But because they wrote them as just antagonistic characters trying to bite at the heels of Handsome Jack and failing, there was no way for that to be good. Which is made even worse with the DLC that introduces a character that is basically Handsome Jack, but he's not, with the actual voice logs from Handsome Jack interacting in that content that he was a part of. They completely fall apart because of that. And I think that's also the death knell of exactly why people are super disinterested, even though they kind of want to see what's there in Borderlands 4. Because Borderlands 4's marketing wasn't even about characters, it was about the guns! And it's like, you can throw tomahawks! You can throw fire and ice tomahawks! It's like, but the character though!
I haven't even played Borderlands 4. Like, it didn't even interest me.
It's probably because they wrote themselves into the corner in the third game and decided that maybe we should probably back the writing one.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Struggle Bus.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Continue your thought while I fix this.
Okay, no problem.
Hello.
Welcome to
Hey,
Symphony.
Sephiroth.
I don't know why I mean.
We are here because it's my performance improvement plan about my performance at the Whick debate.
Oh yeah.
Carl's getting pipped.
Well, you caught me like I was about to do some planning for a drawing collab.
I mean, if you don't want to necessarily be here, you don't have to be.
I mean, I can multitask. I'm on the computer.
Okay, I'm gagged. She said she can multitask. Well, have at it, ma'am.
I mean, was somebody in the middle of their point?
Struggle Bus was talking about something, but he was kind of breaking up, so he's like working on fixing his mic or connection or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't really have much to say about Borderlands. It's not something I played. I made the joke about like Borderlands.
I saw
More
that.
like Borderlands.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But it was one of those things I never really.
So I brought it up in the context of like we were talking about inserting politics into games. Like there's a couple of ways that you can insert politics into games and have the game still be playable. Like you have games like BioShock, which is like a classic, and obviously the message in the first BioShock was basically that a libertarian paradise, quote unquote, will fall apart as interfering elements insert themselves into it and it's unable to protect itself. And then Borderlands has always been a bit woke and kind of, it's in Carl pointed out, it's kind of the definition of the like quippy millennial what's that guy, that the Marvel character, Deadpool type.
Yes.
Game.
Not
Quippy,
everybody can be
Deadpool. Maudlin and irreverent talking points and dialogue
Yeah,
that basically
yeah.
is either Peter Parker or Deadpool. Yes.
But it, even despite that, it still ended up being a popular game, and people enjoyed it because it just has really good gameplay to most people who played it. As opposed to like when you get to like a lot of the games that are actually woke, like Dustborn, for instance, there is no gameplay to save you from being beaten over the head by that really annoying narrative or really annoying characters. It's just a bad game with an annoying message that you have to suffer through. And people like Are Relevant, I think, believe that people should enjoy these games because of the politics that they're pushing, as opposed to because they're good games.
I would probably argue that he didn't even play the game. Based on what happened when I mentioned and brought up the examples of South of Midnight and the snippet of that interview, of which it was a longer interview, and all of the other material referenced about that game alone, I doubt he played the game. He probably heard about it, and what he thinks is, well, it has a message, and it's political, therefore it's good, therefore why should I care? Like, how is this a fault of women in games, Carl? And it's like, the woman inserted her personal character, as well as writing narratives about the Deep South and about black culture and black mythology into the work, and wrote a bad game, while insulting me and herself alone, because she literally is from my origins. She is from my culture. It might as well have been me, but female.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely, I think, like a problem where you have people making. I'm sure like a good game could be made in that setting, with that like cultural background, but it kind of, when you have somebody come in and then make one that just kind of beats you over the head, I mean, it kind of burns the bridge a little bit, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes it harder for people like myself who are trying to make diverse characters more public states. Makes it harder for us to create them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep playing. Let's get through the entirety of this, because it is a long fucking clip from where we have to start from to where we finish. It's like, I think, 20-ish long, and then we can get through the debate pieces.
Kind of like a lot of the video games that we've come to know. Or the modern interpretation, which is very clearly a story about like masculinity and like what it means to grow into being a father.
I'm appalled that he talks.
But only from the Longhouse. But only from the Longhouse, irrelevant.
There's nothing political about that. There's nothing political about Kratos learning how to be a good dad, be a stand-up person, a role model for his child, change who he is to be able to guide it. There's nothing political about that.
Pause.
Like, I don't.
There's nothing political about him learning how to be a father when written by women that are specifically speaking of two men about how to be men from the Longhouse. But there is nothing at all that is contaminous about that when it's women telling men how to be men, and not men telling men how to be men. Especially if they're doing so from a feminist lens. Got it. Cool. Keep going.
It just reeks. It reeks. Yeah, the BioShock series, it reeks of just, there are social commentary things we don't like, and we will shit on them when they either, one, are too much, like, they're too much for us to handle, they're too in our face, we feel it hurts our feelings, or if the game or story or whatever it is just not good.
And the left does the exact same thing when they disagree with the stories that the right or the middle tell too. So no one's absolved.
Super strong and powerful. No, the Star Wars movies were just bad. They just didn't have a good plot.
See?
They just weren't good movies.
They're not good movies, but not because women were involved. They're not good movies because Marketplace.
Woman lead. She could do a bunch of shit. Sure.
Should make games for our customers, not the people you wish were our customers. Like, let's make games for the guys who buy our games.
I think a really important point here.
They are, and nobody wants to do it.
And the reason why like Asmongold I think is saying, you know, I'm gonna pause real quick. Is saying that I just paused it. I think a really important point here, and I think the reason why like Asmongold is making the suggestion that women quote-unquote ruin video games is if you look at the demographics of colleges these days, you can see that the majority of the people going to college now are women, and these kinds of attitudes are certainly coming out of colleges, you know, and I think unfortunately the majority, the most zealous people on the woke kind of faction of things are generally women, and I would imagine that when you look at like the rosters for companies like Sweet Baby Inc. and whatnot, who are actively pushing media in general to convey these kinds of messages, that it is mostly women.
Mm-hmm. There's another factor that I would say is a part of that. But we'll address that when we get further into the debate as it keeps coming up, as I keep mentioning it.
Sure.
The person who's the inhibitor that says maybe we shouldn't make this character non-binary. We already have 3 non-binary characters. You're gonna find yourself in HR tomorrow for a microtransaction and out on your ass next week for being.
This is just literally not true. He's talking about this in the age where Blizzard had a massive lawsuit against them because their workers couldn't stop sexually harassing the female staff. Like, this is just a new thing. This idea that like HR is
this was crazy.
If you ever do anything bad inside of any video game company ever, this is just not true.
Pause. Relevance.
All right.
Relevance. Where's the relevance?
Huh?
I don't see the connective tissue.
Can you elaborate? Struggler, can you elaborate?
Sorry. Trying. Sorry, my mic's.
I mean, yeah, the mic, the way that your mic usually comes through is not helping too, but I want you to elaborate. Because as much as we are doing this for entertainment, we're also doing this as education.
Yeah, I understand.
I think one thing that might help is if you change maybe from voice activity to push to talk, so you can just hold the mic on while you're talking.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It'll stop turning off on you. I think it's just your voice. The voice detection is not working great.
Let us know when you're ready, bro. But I think what he meant by that when he said pause relevance is, okay, you're doing whataboutism right now. What about the industry is negated by Blizzard and their relevance case, which was covered up by none other than the worst of the worst game journalists that spawned all of the bad ones that were responsible for Kotaku and Polygon, which is Jason Schreier. How is the covering up of the stories that happen inside of Blizzard going to negate the fact that there are people that are responsible for the social, the cultural, and the industry rot of the business from the position of women? Because you're saying, oh, the reason they had problems was in this one company, there were gooners amongst their people that were responsible for turning in bad product because they were too busy harassing women and drinking their breast milk. But we didn't learn about the details of that story until a feminist himself chose to withhold the details of what was happening in the doors to write a book about it for $30. This would be an example of literally feminism and women ruining gaming, because we could root that problem out faster if he actually blew the whistle. So what you're actually saying is, actually, I don't care about it as long as it doesn't directly look like a bad look to me. If I can blame it on men being gooners, or men being bad influences, or men being harassers, then whataboutism? Otherwise, I don't see it. The connections are weak. Is that what you were trying to say, Struggler?
Yes, actually. Very strict on that one.
Okay. I mean, use your words. You can use my... Whoa, pause. Whoa! The sentence that was about to come out of my mouth was weird. You can use my voice to help describe it, but it works better if you also use your own words. No.
I totally understand.
No.
It's just this mic is actually a goddamn idiot. I am so sorry.
It's a lot better now.
Yeah,
It's a lot better now.
because I'm using push to talk instead.
Yeah.
So here's what I was thinking about. It's really annoying to see this guy try to connect a tissue with that. It's like, I don't understand what you're getting at when you basically laid it out already, but I don't see the connective tissue there where he's trying to do this with relevance, with what he's trying to talk about.
Well, if we go forth with the theory that I already have, and I'm pretty sure it's proved during the debate, that he doesn't know anything that isn't on the front page of LSF, all he knows is Blizzard, women, breast milk, and something else that doesn't actually matter for the context of what we were discussing. And yet, what about the many times in which Blizzard actively told members of staff, do not look at the numbers coming from Final Fantasy XIV, we need to sell the game? What are the examples of both the women and the men that were responsible for the merger of Activision Blizzard when they were making Diablo Immortal? When they were making Diablo Immortal, what about those people that they hired from King, who were literally the creators of Candy Crush, played by moms, when they were making a game that was meant to be an ARPG you play on your phone? What part of them doing that was not a part and was a part of the rot that led to the industry ruining itself as it got away from the source of, I'm trying to chase the almighty Tink, versus, here's me trying to get these people to play a video game that they would not already be interested in because we have a vested interest to please our shareholders, but we're not actually serving our customer base. We're overcharging them for microtransactions, and we're turning out a product that we don't fully believe in, and we're going to blame it on the chuds instead of blaming it on the people who had the bad idea in the first place, especially if it is the women who were in charge. Because I remember going through on multiple live streams in the past and actually looking at the leadership that made up Activision Blizzard King at the time, before they were acquired by Microsoft. One part men, one part women. It was about 50-50%. And all of the people who were responsible for liaisons, marketing, advertisement, speaking to the shareholders, woman, 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 woman. Every single time.
There has been a huge push in corporate America to promote to hire and promote as many women as possible. It's to the point where like I can anecdotally say, like in my own workplace, they ran out of women to promote and then were confused as to why there were no more women in the lower rungs of the company. All that were left were the men that they didn't promote. So they're like, oh, well,
I'm sorry, but that's hilarious.
This clearly
That's
means
fucking
we
funny.
need to hire more women. And it's like, the problem, you're going to run into this problem immediately, because you'll hire a bunch of women and then you'll promote them all and you'll leave the men in the lower rungs again. And then this is like it's like a rationality issue. But anyway, yeah, there's been a huge push across corporate America to hire and promote as many women as possible. And I obviously, I'm not against women in the workplace, but I do think that it is approaching a point, or has already reached a point where it's like explicit hiring bias.
Yes, not just an explicit push for it, but an encouragement of it, and a parity issue that if you don't have them, that it is a problem. Literally, verbatim, word for word, bar for bar, we're going to present this to people, we're going to continue to push this, and we're going to make it a case that if you didn't put this, and if you didn't push for this in the business, that this is a problem that we need to do, and we're going to continue to critique the business, and we're going to continue to critique work. I had posted this on Twitter not so long ago, from my first account, and have a version of it that I've kept from my second account that was literally Anita Sarkeesian from a stage on a table from a talk stating this about how you're going to critique the business, which is just a continuation of her pre-existing argumentation, which is that everything is political, you need to point it out. So pointing out that there's women in your company, you don't seem to have enough women in higher echelons of business, not affirming whether or not these people deserve to be promoted or not, that they must be promoted as a factor of proof that you have consolidation with women, and none of these women are actually responsible for the business decisions that both lead to better product as well as a reflective product that is accepted by the consumer base. This is the difference between all of the DEI companies, all of the script doctoring companies, and all of the developer companies that believe in this lockstep, and say Rebecca over at Digital Extremities for Warframe and Soulframe. Because she is literally the soul of that company at this point in time. There have been people who have come through the doors of Digital Extremities that were there from the beginning that have since left or are in a reduced position compared to her position, from going from the lead of the player base and communities for interaction to becoming the lead and head of creative, where she's on stage along with other people presenting the game as a part of their advertisement on the Game Awards. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's just as much as the rise of Amy Hennig. It's just as much as the rise of any female writer who is responsible for writing a good product, or a female voice actor demonstrating their skill in the business. That doesn't happen just because you hired a woman, therefore. You actually have to have a finger on the pulse of the job. And that kind of...
Well,
Go ahead.
You want to hire someone who is a woman and is good. And the problem is, by trying to hit an artificial metric, we should have equal representation. The company should be 50% men, 50% women. I mean, it's just a fact that there are not as many women who are interested in playing and making video games as there are men in all assets or in all facets of that process, and this extends to any industry. This concept extends to any industry. If you go and say, we're going to hire not based on who is the most competent to fill this role, but rather based on a artificial metric for gender balance in your company, you're going to objectively have to hire less qualified, less suitable candidates for the same role, because you have 7 men on the team and 3 women, and you need 5 men and 5 women, so you can't hire. You got to get rid of 2 men and hire 2 women, even if they're not maybe the best for the job, because that's what the HR said so. The shareholders said so. I think that's kind of where we see a lot of really bad quality coming through with these more woke kind of games.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody
I
else?
completely agree on that.
Anybody have?
I mean,
go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, I completely agree on that. What we see out of these companies just seems like they're just creating stopgaps and putting people that don't have the, I guess, legacy or the experience in order to create these things into positions of power, and then just they don't know exactly what to do.
Okay.
They just let them go, and they do. They're people who are less interested in making a game and more interested in putting their politics into a game. And unfortunately, because the system is currently set up to aim for gender parity at all levels, it's inevitable that you end up accumulating quite a lot of these people.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. Also, you probably should have filed for discriminatory practices for your job there, if I'm going to be honest.
Oh, it's one of those situations where I'm better off just, keeping quiet about things.
It works better for his advantage later. That's a mystery mask tool he'll use for when he wants to get his $1 million payout.
It's more like the industry I work in is just inherently like that, and if you speak up about it, you get kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know that feeling, babe.
yeah.
Yes. So
you just gotta keep your head down, keep quiet, and observe.
Okay. So unless somebody else has something they want to add, very quickly, let's move forward. We're not even technically through the debate yet. We're just through the material that is relevant to the arguments that were being made.
Okay, do we want to keep playing on
Yes.
the kick stream, or do... Okay.
Yes, we're going to finish the kick stream, then we're going to move to the debate.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, that's the Bud Light dilemma, right?
Exactly.
It's not
Well,
a dilemma, bro.
Tried to make Bud Light for people who don't want Bud Light, and make fun of the Bud Light people.
It's the mythical audience. It's a mythical mainstream audience. They say it's even worse in gaming because they'll say things like, 50% of gamers are
50 are women, but they're all playing Candy Crush and these other bullshit games that aren't real. They're not real gamers. They're not playing Elden Ring. Yeah, there's like 6 girls that play Elden Ring.
Again, I will take this with anybody. Asmongold is not a real gamer. If we're doing real gamer, like line in the sand things, you are not a real
Not a real gamer.
I don't care what the video
That's
game
funny.
is.
That's really funny.
If you have 15 years of your real life spent, like total years of gameplay time in League of Legends, you're not a real gamer. You play one video game. You are a real League of Legends player. You're a real World of Warcraft player. To me, and I think a very tangible definition for gamer is that you play video games. Plural.
And I think if you don't play the video games you're trying to debate on, you should probably shut the fuck up and listen to people who are the experts.
Maybe you play well, whatever it might be.
Fair point.
Is like this idea that I've only played World of Warcraft. I don't. Wait, what is Minecraft? What is fucking Red Dead Redemption? What's GTA? What's Battlefield? I don't know what these are. Like what?
I disagree with him here.
Go ahead.
If you are a video gamer and you only play one game, like if you play World of Warcraft, like kind of this, he keeps railing on that, and you just play World of Warcraft all the fucking time, like that's your game, you're still a gamer. Like that's a bullshit. Like that's a bullshit take, I think.
It's inherently bullshit by its nature because obviously it's number one, it's coded in what his opinion is. Nigga, fuck your opinion. Number one, but then number two, it precludes a very important point that I already made earlier, which is not just a single game, but a genre of games. It is very normal for ARPG players because there's this nature for streaming where if you make your bones by playing a genre or by playing a game to the point that your audience basically has you audience captured to the genre because you have to either by your interest, by your actual reach, or by the content you produce, that you can only produce that, and if you were to produce something else, you would either see a reduction in your monetary value, or it would affect your potential earnings, which, for Hassan, for politics, You could use that perfect analogy. Like Asmongold. He makes this amount of content that is fusing world geopolitical status with gaming culture. This is what he makes his money for. If he did not do this, if he randomly started becoming a cooking stream, where he said, no politics about gaming, we only bake bread here, eat this banana loaf, it would have a direct effect on his business. Same thing with Irrelevant. If he was to produce anything other than dumb lefty political takes, and also trying to debate people on TikTok with the Harry Sasson grift, it would lead to a downturn of his relevance and views. And I can prove that literally with the numbers that I pulled from his Solinome from all the years that he had been streaming on Twitch, that he has now tried to basically pretend don't exist. Because he used to do, in the past, the thing that I said that he didn't do anymore on the broadcast. He did not actually stream video games. He talks about them, he supposedly consumes them, but you can't find any proof of it. Same thing with people like, say, the multiple names I pulled up were in the anti-woke grifters. Smash JT. Because before, in the past, he was probably not a grifter. He's just a fucking influencer that ended up getting this position that he was afforded from being next to Kabritas Rambo. But very much now, he is 100% a media grifter. It is the case that they say they love games, they report on the drama of the games, they report on drama happening in the industry around developers of the games, but you will never see them actually play a game. You'll never see them play the dissertation of the content that becomes relevant for their review of the game, that is critical about their critique about the business because of what they learned from the game. But they're going to be all over the drama of it. So for Smash GT's channel, constantly talking about Ghost of Yotei, talking about how the game is being ruined by Eric Ishii, but he never played it for a single second. Never used any money that he got from his fans to do it, to investigate it, because realistically, it's like the Trump shit. How is it that you're in a year of Trump and you can't be able to produce content about this, and you're only talking about the drama of the game, to the point that he was generating AI art that was supposed to be his thumbnails about these content creators, to the point that he was basically putting words in the mouth of these people, creating entire situations around the people, and did so in a way that it was unironically digital blackface, digital minstrelsy even, to present a boogeyman and a punching bag for him to attack. That kind of content, if you make your entire business around producing that one thing, like a League of Legends player, whether you're contracted to or it's the only game that you play that you make money on, if you stop producing that thing, then it then leads to a reduction of your viability in the marketplace. It is actually to the case that it is very interesting and very important that that be included on the reason why you'd be motivated to do something. Because that is a point of backing that would be a part of the assessment of the business, where, okay, you have people that are media access journalists that literally get their grift money from giving the okie doke to the reporting firms and to the business because they are given a bonus and they are given kickbacks for good reviews. Literally. Like, I give you access to the game. You don't even have to pay the money. I give you early access and first approval and a free copy of the game for reviewing it and saying positive things about it, even if
you're gonna softball it.
Yeah, even if the game happens to be an absolute turd. And you do so with the knowledge, knowing that we're watching you when we do so. It was the case that there was a review for Mind's Eye that was going to come from Coke Carnage. And they pulled it the moment that the company that was responsible for the Headhunter contract for this heard that he was bad-mouthing the game. They rescinded the monetization deal. That kind of behavior is responsible for why people do not have trust in the game industry, as it is, when they present people that are amongst the political intelligentsia, giving these productions to the people that are consuming them. Because you can't tell who's a market shill, who's paid off or not, unless they're doing it from a position of passion. And then, when they're doing it from a position of passion, you have to then trust, okay, this is your opinion, and this is truthfully your own words, but are you actually clued in to what people are saying? Do you actually have an opinion that reflects the viewpoints that come from the people that are a part of the business? Or is this just you saying what you want people to hear, and then you have an entirely different opinion that shows that, no, you're actually just talking hot shit? This isn't really what you think. This is just something that you're saying because it works to your benefit to say it. And if you were questioned upon this, if you were actually pressed on the issue, you wouldn't have a response to give. You'd just be like, bro's just angry, bro's just mad, and you can't actually show for the inclusion of positive or negative if it is something that you truly believe. This was the basis upon why G4 was being rejected when everybody was shitting on Indiana Black, aka Froskinner. She came from a background of being a part of the League of Legends esports scene. She was one of the few correspondents that directly spoke to the foreign marketplace, just like Lou Xu and Richard Lewis of esports fame as well. Because Lou is responsible for literally understanding how the marketplace works in the eastern sector, because China, Japan, Taiwan, Oceania, and all of those other areas in the SEA don't talk to the business of America or of the Western marketplace the same way at all. Because that's literally the history behind why games journalists did things famously, like shitting on Japanese RPGs and praising Western RPGs. Like, it was literally something they did, even with the original presentation from Tack of the Show and from Adam Susser's coverage. To the degree point that when they tried to bring back G4, it was a sticking point of their cancellation that people said, you are writing reviews that did not come from the person who's presenting the content. And it was a part of that argument that she said when she went on to say what she said that killed the company in the ground, sitting next to known figures that are fucking game tourists, like the Black Okage, that you shouldn't have an opinion about whether or not I actually reviewed the content myself or not. Which means they don't want us to question it. We should just listen to them and believe, because it's a big figure name. So, Screen Junkies, to the same degree, Smosh to the same degree, you could even say people like My Dry Bread, me, myself, Irrelevant himself, Whick, any person that is in a scene of a business, that lives in an ecosystem, that this review of this person's channel is an endorsement of the work, and you can't tell if they actually know what they produce or not, or if it's just, we work in lockstep with each other, therefore I promote this person because they're in on the business and they agree with my politics, as was the case back when you started dealing with people like 9volt and, what was his name? Rami Ismaili, being responsible for the push of reviews on games like Spec Ops The Line and 6 Days in Fallujah being pulled because they wanted to specifically say you weren't doing enough, and it was just done on the representation of this one person who did it, rather than people themselves playing it and finding out if they actually wanted to support said movement or not. That is literally factors that are responsible for whether a person wants to donate money or not to a content creator. Because when influencers and YouTubers became responsible for having critiques that were able to be better and more popular and more biting than those journalists, that's when we started to see the video game reviewer and the video game player and let's player actually have more weight than the journalists themselves. Because who are you going to listen to and believe? The person who's supposedly writing an article and you can't tell if they played it or not? A game journalist that did play the game on camera, but they specifically come from a specific viewpoint that is inherent to either their political takes or to their personal views of how the industry ought to be, rather than the actual review of the content, where they'll use the review as a pulpit to talk about politics, like they did with the PS5 review for Kotaku and Polygon? Or are you going to trust this fucking no-name person who's got a viral stream of them playing a video game and having a fucking blast because they're just cracking jokes constantly, and they are the definition of the talking points that were presented from think piece channels like Extra Credits, where supposedly, if they have enough affinity to a game and they crack jokes about something, they're going to justify hatred, Nazism, bigotry, racial ethnic cleansing, and what have you, because you see something political in fictional, and all of a sudden, orcs are equal to black people, just like people would say monkeys are equal to black people when you're making derogatory comments and remarks. To the point where now, an entire fictional medium like Wizards of the Coasts needs to be babyfied and made soft and made safe, which is inherently feminist, making a safe space out of something that made its bones from being edgy and dangerous, so that you can then appeal to this marketplace in such a way that you have a captured audience that can't critique the work, because if they do, it literally directly affects whether or not they are able to make their fucking rent the next month. I think things like that are actually inherent to the nature of how you corrupt a business far beyond just the writers writing things that are poor. Because when you have that kind of control, then that explains not just single-player games, that explains single-player games, it explains multiplayer games, it explains live service multiplayer games with terms of service and in-user license agreements that proselytize and push a specific type of behavior standard on you, similar to Riot Games and the proliferation of both the original terminology of toxicity as well as the Summers Code, which said that not only do you need to be a good player, but you also need to be a good person, which led to the Riot Games' famous harassment and struggle sessions in their forums, and even still to this day, on the boards that they own by paying it for money from Reddit, that was popularized by the employee Jeremy Lin, formerly known as Riot Light, who popularized the Light Smite of toxic, mean, nasty chud gets his account banned and loses all the money he invested into his digital NFTs because he called somebody shit in the video game. That is inherently female in behavior. And it's also something that they repeated not just with random players, but with known figures, especially when you had women doing content where they popularized themselves on the internet, crying wolf and asking for a person to be banned because of behavior that they're baiting to get a negative reaction from in the games. And then the head of discipline, which also was a woman and is a woman, especially famously in the case of Valorant, then suspended that player, citing said bad behavior. All of those things physically go together and are a part of that perception, because you have a responsibility to the marketplace as well as to your core audience to do what it is they expect of you. And just like a influencer can be audience captured, I'm being a little bit too wordy, but this is important because this is actually the narrative. This is the entire point of my argument. When you have this kind of behavior that is inherent to the control of this control matrix that allows people to be constrained by these kinds of social rules and social niceties, this is what ruins the gaming industry. The behavior itself doesn't mean allow all toxic things to happen, allow people to call people slurs constantly, but you have to make a difference between what is tough talk in the internet and what is gamer talk versus what is constantly doling out soft edges of behavior and hiding the violent nature of a cutthroat industry behind soft language and feminist perspectives. Because you are inherently creating a place that is hostile and cutthroat, but people wouldn't think that it is because it seems like it's soft and inviting, when in fact
it also generally corrupts the medium.
Yes,
you know, like you brought up a really good point, like with the Wizards of the Coast, you know, where the introduction of these, well, you know, you can't like hurt anybody's feelings, and people might identify themselves with the orcs for some reason, or I identify the orcs as this for some reason, leads to the orcs becoming sanitized, where now, you know, the you know, like you had that weird you know, poster over the summer with the beholders and the orcs and everything all like hands, big,
I don't want to forget.
like, yeah, you end up with weird bizarre things like that. We're like, these are all like, these creatures are all like supposed to be like unironically evil at base. Like, what is this? You know, why are you identifying with these things? You know? Yeah. Sorry. Go on, Carl.
but yeah, you have a complete corruption of the industry as well as the marketplace, as well as the community that is occupying that ecosystem because of this nature of corruption, and then this top-down structuring of behavioral correction. That means that you can't speak out as an influencer, you can't speak out as an industry head, you can't speak out as a moderator, you can't speak out as an adjudicator, you can't even speak out as a customer, because you will be attacked by the antibodies of such a specific control matrix that they will gaslight you, as they attempted to gaslight me, that it's not happening whatsoever, while at the same time, those people continue to have opinions like what you're hearing from Irrelevant and seeing on screen from him and his audience. Like, response directly here on this screen cap from Trifect. But also, we're humans, but of course we're going to put our ideals and beliefs in the things we do. Baldur's Gate 1 was literally created by a gay guy that wanted more representation in games. What part of the guy the guy that is gay made the game, therefore this contracts against, this person can't say, yeah, I'm being harassed by women, and if I call this woman an asshole, she's going to run to mommy and daddy internet and get my entire account and stream banned so I can't make money. What part of these things negates the point that you can have an industry make video games with politics and they be good, versus I can't even talk to you because if I call you a slur, because you shouldn't speak with people like this in this way. You should identify when they act like this so that when they make this kind of argument, you should call them a fucking slur to their face and then kick them down a flight of stairs. Ideologically speaking, rhetorically speaking, because
metaphorically in Minecraft,
if I speak to you in this way and I prove to you a point about something, your response to that is, how can I punish you for having that argument? Oh, look at this guy, he's a shithead chud. This is proof of how he's never going to be a father, for example. If I can't speak on something like this, where you have to say it's inherently not true, it's not at all. He's like a group home mental patient at this point, from another chatter, literally first-time chatter inside of the VOD. Kojima begging the player to not let his game's future happen in every game. The good news is that his own crowd will eventually turn on him. The women hating is forced and brosexual. Name 3 non-binary game characters off the top of your head. I can't do it, and I'm literally a tranny. Behold, a white, pale Trojan horse. Every single bit of it is denying the inherent truth of what I said. The business, the industry, the people, the sectors, the influence of the community, and how those ecosystems operate together. They are literally being controlled by a mechanism like this.
You can more or less write off what these folks are saying as being the stereotypical Redditor source, or actually. Like, they're literally just flipping between those two, like, archetypes.
And yeah, that it's inherent to the nature of audience capture that if you have a content creator who has to make their money off of doing this, or has to make their money off of playing a singular game or a singular genre of game, that you're going to see people basically move away from them if they don't get the kind of content that they believe should be endemic to them enjoying what should be there. It is the case that you could see a lot of that happening, and that you would see a falter of their investment in the business for what it's worth. And a lot of the times, that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Tide goes in, tide goes out. It shouldn't directly affect you that much. And I say you as in you, the investor and customer, not you, the fan. If I go to Dev, and what I want to do when I go to see Devin's content is I want to see socio-political commentary that analyzes things from the position of a Canadian that speaks to both the political sector and the gaming sector. I should be able to find that. I don't go to him to find out about how to bake a cake. So if he was to start baking, if he was to start making that content, I would obviously tune off of it. If there is an influencer that specifically has a design to their work, where their job is to literally go into the industry and script doctor for companies so they can put this type of narrative push into game design, like that of Sweet Baby Inc., that then employs people like Maya Rudolph, originally one of the other people that was responsible, probably got the last name wrong, transgender person that was responsible and a part of Silverstring Media, that was a part of the first script doctoring groups from Gamergate 1 that influenced this same directive. When Kim Belair goes on stage, goes on to interviews, goes on to keynote speeches, just like Neil Druckmann saying, the female protagonist of the past is dead. We need to make new female protagonists that aren't video game vixens. And she says, we need to bring white men into our queer games and into our queer development. We need to bring them into playing our video games that have mediums that have these talking points in them. Because if we don't have them in them, we lose twice. Because the market will reject our philosophy because it doesn't reflect a growth of money. And we'll lose out from being able to ideologically capture them because they won't be playing and experiencing our games. They have a vested interest in keeping that manipulative factor in perpetuance so that they can continue to make money. So that they can, as Anita said, continue to critique work.
But bizarrely though, you can clearly see that they don't do that though.
They don't.
Like you would think that they would if they were rational actors, and but they really don't seem like when you see people bring up like that point, like, hey, maybe you should also try to make this appeal to the majority of the people who consume this type of content. The general refrain is they're just not the target audience, or you're just not the target audience. And then you end up, with people going, okay, then I won't play the game.
Yes.
And then they don't, and then the game doesn't sell, and and it's like, okay, so you were told that you should bring people in who actually are representative of the majority of the consumers of this type of content, and you chose not to, stating that they are not the target audience. So you ran the target audience, the actual target audience, away. And that doesn't seem to factor into their actions.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't factor into the actions or the worldview of how they approach it. And then you ask yourself, okay, so in this case where that exactly happened, tell me how this is an okay thing to proceed and how this isn't the case. And then when they cite this failure from this explicit point where it was the purpose of the writers to put this critique there, and that they chose to infuse it with this political content, and it ended up not selling because they specifically put that question to the consumers, and the consumers spoke with their wallet. Why do you cope out and say, oh, well, that's just marketism, that's just mercantilism, that's just marketing, that's not any of our fault, actually, that's just you guys being coy? I think it's to something that you said before we came here, inside of Symposium, that actually it's the case that they are for it. They're either lying and they're hiding their hands, or they're completely taking the mask off and power leveling and saying that not only is it good, it's good and I want it to keep happening, and it's good that it happens because then I get to manipulate the marketplace and I get to pass it off as somebody else's fault.
Right.
Because there's no way that you can be for this kind of thing corrupting the business. Because if the politics leads to a game not being able to make something, if we live in the alternate dimension where the decision was made that actually we needed to do what would have made South of Midnight a good game rather than a bad game, then it is the case that we should have done that from that position, and we should have argued for that from that position without someone being able to take that away from the game, so they could use that as a neutralizing argument for why it should be acceptable that you that you subsume slop and that you don't argue about it. Because then, if the game would have mattered, and maybe the same thing be done for all the other games that were canceled too, if it were the case that that was actually done for the game, and the game was thus then good, would you then still have the same opinion if you are people that are in this precluded position to say that actually it's good that it happened, and then it's like, but actually they were able to do everything for the profit margin for the consumers while staying true to the vision, while then delivering this thing that had this very specific context? In the case of Forspoken, black people being treated piss poor and homelessness. In the case of Saints Row, a millennials worldview of all of the issues that happen inside of a world controlled by boomer politics. Housing market prices, the cost of living, etc. And then in the case of South of Midnight, a Southerner's worldview of how the world ought work, and how a mother and a daughter and a grandmother can't see eye to eye between 3 generations of women, filled in a world with black folklore and fairy tale, informing that actually a mother and a daughter should have a connection to each other, and that a grandmother shouldn't be filled with so much hatred for the wife chosen by her son that she resents and tries to murder her own granddaughter. If it is the case that they are able to serve all 3 sectors of the marketplace and then still foster a healthy conversation around it, you should not be so quick and out of pocket to say that this is bad for the industry to have done this, because it works in that direction that it actually leads to positive outcomes that you should be for. And maybe then, if it does exactly that, they stop reaching for that excuse, because then it's possible that you can actually be able to convince people of your arguments without trying to basically sneak them into the work and then trick people into falling into your ideology. You're just up forward with it. You are presenting it as is, instead of trying to take a secondary route around it to maliciously grift upon it.
It's being direct versus being duplicitous.
Yes.
Where, you can put, storytelling and even ideological storytelling into a game and make the game popular. It's kind of like we talked about earlier, like, games like BioShock did that really well, and many other games. That's just I stick on BioShock because I really like BioShock. But you know, a lot of games have included, you know, pretty heavy storylines, you know, pretty heavy political elements in them without being dishonest, you know, about how they're presenting themselves. There was a point I wanted to make a point earlier, but I can't remember what it was.
It'll come back to you at some point, probably.
Probably.
And if it doesn't, blame single player Carl. Too long-winded. Too long-winded. Too long-winded. Kappa. Anyways, let's keep going.
Can I just say that I don't mind you being long-winded because I actually have an attention span. I'm just saying.
But let's get through this so that we can get through the rest of the content.
All right, let's go.
Are you know, stay-at-home moms.
Exactly.
You're like, what? That obviously isn't true.
It's not true.
And what it
Of
is
course.
it's something like there's a lot of stay-at-home moms who've played Candy Crush a few times.
He's literally just jerking this guy off.
Note that right there. He's literally just jerking this guy off. I said this exact argument on broadcast, and supposedly it's just the marketplace. When he hears this, he pretends he doesn't know what I'm talking about, but he said here, he's just jerking him off.
I do. And yeah, what do you think? Yeah, think about this. Just think for a second.
A better business plan to go after the young men primarily who buy a dozen $50 games a year.
You know what's funny? This strategy, this marketing strategy,
works.
Kept video games as a niche that was deeply unpopular and considerably less profitable than it otherwise would have been.
Selling things to the market.
All right, I gotta pause here because this is just crazy wrong what he's saying. Like video games are popular explicitly because of that strategy. It's that exact strategy that kept the console wars going for as long as it did. You know, it's the idea that you need to dumb down your content to appeal to as many people as possible. You know, the thing is, the majority of people either, especially like this guy's probably talking on like a global scale, right? The majority of the people, number one, can't afford video games. You know, people, so they're probably going to pirate them, and they're not interested. You know, like video gaming is inherent. Like good video games they're not like the Candy Crush type games that appeal broadly to, like, you know, moms, grandmas, and whatnot. You know, like if you want a good game, like StarCraft wasn't made, you know, to appeal to everyone. It was made to appeal to people who enjoyed Warcraft 2. You know. Wait, that was my little spiel there.
Talking about existed, Pokemon would not be even half as popular as it is. Stardew Valley would have never existed. The Sims wouldn't be half.
Watch Girl been playing Stardew Valley though.
So many different games. Fortnite wouldn't be probably like 40% as popular as it is, 30%. There's a fair number of women who play Fortnite. This idea that like all of these games must be geared exclusively towards men is just not something that makes financial sense. There is money to be made because women play video games. Getting women into video games is good for the companies that make video games. It's just really, really dumb. I don't know. It's like a bunch of fucking people who go to McDonald's complaining about like how restaurants fucking make food. It's like, bro, you just eat slop all day. Animal Crossing's a good example. That game literally would not exist without women. Like, I gotta imagine Animal Crossing 70%.
All right, but how would it make sense?
That's rather sexist, isn't it?
Would it make the McDonald's thing too? Like, would it make sense to go to McDonald's and then like change the food explicitly to appeal to women? I don't think McDonald's makes any such effort.
They used to have like really good salads on the menu, and that appeals to women.
Now they don't. And now they don't.
Their salads, they had chicken salads, and I remember my mom used to go there all the time, get chicken salad, and I'm like, okay.
I think a salad appeals to everyone, though. You know, I mean, anyone who's trying to be a little more.
Yeah, but it was like the salad with like the I forget what their menu had. This was like 2010. Well, it had to be late 2000s.
I remember
Early
the salad you're
2010.
talking about. Yeah.
And they had the snack wraps that was like my regular go-to.
They brought those back, at least out here on the West Coast. I don't know if they did in your area, but the snack.
I
wraps
heard they brought them back, but I haven't seen them. Well, I don't go
They're
to.
here.
I haven't been to McDonald's to willingly eat there in a very long time, except for their breakfast menu.
Go a little too frequently.
Like at least 70%. This idea that like these games, these are good games, by the way. It's just predominantly women. Like Animal Crossing's a good fucking game. But this idea that it just all needs to be catered towards men makes no financial sense. They're just looking at these like fucking Dragon Age Veilguard examples or fucking, you know, whatever the fuck examples of like games that they can call DEI. They're just going like, oh, integrating women in gaming is completely phenomenal successes.
Or the mom who once spent 5.
My girlfriend plays Animal Crossing Stardew Valley. Oh yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is another thing that has a, I guess maybe not super surprising, women audience, right? A lot of women play that game. I've known a lot of women who play that game. That game is pretty good. Like, yeah, that's another one. That is a good game.
But did they make it specifically to appeal to women, or is it just that Harry Potter has general appeal?
It was
Or
worldwide appeal.
Or is it the case that it has appeal that even if they had made it to target a female audience or a male audience, they did not do it to exclude the other audience based on gender. And they did not even speak on gender lines. They did it based on appeal.
How video games are not dead anymore, you're just retarded.
Right. It's literally just Harry Potter is a juggernaut of an IP and has appeal to basically everyone born from, 1985 up to probably 2005.
Path of Exile targeted towards men. And this idea that, like, there's just no good games anymore. Red Dead Redemption 2.
Pause, real quick.
Like, there's so many games.
So, right there, he starts listing off games, including Path of Exile, which really should just be saying, grinding your games is entire epilogue, because all they do is make these two games. And then also the mobile port that they were acquired by, not acquired, but got a purchasing interest from Tencent for 40%. To produce, because you have, in order to do business in the Chinese marketplace, you must be partnered with a company that's partnered with the CCP. No argumentation about this. Which then, certainly, that doesn't ruin the gaming either. The ability for the marketplace to be affected by a foreign power speaking directly to your audience, that we are no longer the audience that actually the content is made for. We're the test audience, and they make more money than us by dollar, 5 to 1, no matter what numbers you're talking about. That certainly isn't a factor either. Wonk, wonk, wonk. But the game is made for men. This game is made to appeal to men. I would argue no, actually, because the base campaign of both games plays like an actual story. It has a beginning. It has literally, if you account for the many timelines, and yes, there are timelines that refer to the lore, because there's lots to discover in the game. Lots and lots of things to click on. Little tidbits, little story bits, information from NPC characters. It is written like it is a complete story. All of the campaign pieces, from the first 10, not the first, but the entire 10 acts of Exile 1, and currently the story as presented right now with the complete content in Acts 1 through 4, and the to-be-completed chapters 5 and 6, as well as the interludes. They all tell a story that does not preclude a female audience. If you say it's made for men, it's made to appeal for men, because really what he means to say is pander. That it's meant to pander to men. Does it pander, appeal, get marketed to men in exclusion to another demographic? Are they saying, this is for men only, fuck women, go back to the kitchen where you belong? If it's made for women, it's saying, no men allowed, go back to the chud cave, this isn't for you. Is that what the marketplace is doing? No, it isn't. It is actually to the degree, especially... Go ahead.
It's not, but that is what they fall back on when their games fail. They fall back on the implication that you're not the target audience, even though I'm confident that they don't consciously try to make any game unappealing. You know, I think it's just that obviously the game you're talking about doesn't have that problem, but like when you have like
Multiple
actual
games,
like
multiple games, yes.
a woke game, I don't think that they're intentionally trying to make it unappealing to men. I think it's just that they are not capable of making a game that's appealing to men.
Because I would actually argue, especially if you're going to remove the accusation from the video game and actually put it on the genre. So when he says Path of Exile, he actually says ARPG. It is actually the case that there is more of a female audience that is playing the type of ARPGs like Warframe than there are men playing those games pound for pound. And the reason why is because the actual thing that is attracting the audiences is being spoken to based on the content that they're offering. The way that I described it before, and I will keep saying it again, is that you have these games that fit a particular niche for the genre that they belong to. Just like an autism simulator can be played and can be appealing to, can be marketed to, can be pandering to a male audience, it is actually the case that you can end up pulling a lot more females. Not only because, number one, there are more females that are being diagnosed as autistic, but number two,
that's crazy.
But number two, that the thing that is attracting those people was already mentioned for in another demographic or presented and was being provided by another video game that they have since migrated from, and they are now finding something to replace it. I'm certain you've been aware of that post that came from multiple sites speaking on the fact that there was a known hack client for The Sims, for Sims 3, Sims 4, that has now gone fully defunct because the creator of it and the operator of the project basically shut the entire thing down and walked away because he was tired of being harassed by the male and female demographics that were coming in, that were essentially tourists trying to access the content of The Sims 3 and 4, which are unilaterally declared some of the most expensive games in existence by contract, because the third game requires like $800 worth of DLC, and the fourth game, especially when it's contracted to EA, is like nearly $1,400. And this guy created a project that did it for free. When he shut that thing down, welcome back, Mariner, when he shut that thing down, women in droves went to Warframe because it's considered the cozy game. Namely because, unlike other ARPGs that are in the Diablo sense of making a ladder, non-ladder experience, which involves a seasonal wipe, which basically means in that season, between a non-season and a seasonal ladder, you cannot share your equipment, which would be the equivalent of losing your character. They moved to Warframe because it is a cozy, because it is a social experience, because it is a game that they can be able to just shut out and veg out on, the same way that they already were, and that they're able to enjoy without some type of barrier preventing them from accessing said content. And the fact that it has a woman in leadership who actively knows ball would assuage them to go towards it rather than Exile, which also has a higher proportion of female players than male players. It's not
I do wonder,
like, it's not, go ahead.
how many women actually know that there is a high-ranking member of the development team that is a woman? Like, is that a common thing? Do women go and look at who is making the game before they play it to see if they'll like it? I feel like that's something that, like, do they do?
Yes.
I'm surprised by that, because I don't do that with games. You know, like when I play a game, when I look at games, I pay almost no attention to who made it. Like I am looking at the game's reviews on Steam, and I'm looking at, like, you know, videos of the game and the reactions that players are having to it. I might watch a Let's Play, although I'm more likely to read like a review of it, although I don't take them very seriously, because most video game journalists are kind of stupid.
Which plays into part of his own argument, but everybody already knew that.
But I don't generally care who made it, you know? Like, probably the only games I can think of where I, like, know who the developers were are, like, the original boomer shooters. Like, I know, like, John Carmack and John Romero and whatnot, you know. But I can't say the same for most other games, you know. So I'm surprised by that.
In the case of ARPGs, it is because the people that are a part of the community moderation team and staff are so vocal, and they are so prevalent, and they are forward-facing to the company. Rebecca is basically the face and the heart and soul of Digital Extremities. And by the same degree... Go ahead.
But if someone is coming from The Sims, I feel like they're not likely to have that same interest, because they didn't come to it because it's an ARPG. They came to it because The Sims became, inaccessible due to its vastly inflated expense. Whereas in, this other game, what was it? Warframe is, more accessible to them. So I, in my mind, I would imagine, because I know a lot of women who play The Sims, right? It's like a really common game.
I might be the only one who doesn't play this.
You might be. And I can tell you, like, the women I know who play The Sims are like one of my close family friend of mine. She plays The Sims religiously, and she barely knows how to use a computer. Like, this is not this is like the Sims is like the game, that she plays. And I can't imagine that if she went and was like, well, The Sims has become inaccessible to me, I'm gonna play a different game. And I'm not saying all Sims players are like this, but I can't imagine that she would go and then look up who the development team for Warframe was if that was the game that her friends were going to. I think she would just go because her friends went.
The case of why I bring this up and why I say that is that, especially in the ARPG genre, it's like this in MOBAs, it's like this in ARPGs. I don't know if it's like this in everything else, unless, of course, they're a super fan of a particular company, and they know them by heart. But it is the case here that people go to these particular genres because they know the person who developed it. You could probably say this about the developers of Caves of Khud, where they have a very big lefty audience in their Discord and in their fan base because they were responsible for making Dwarf Fortress and they were responsible for making Caves of Khud, that were these old-school roguelikes, but for them it was a political thing, so they were tied to it for those reasons. Whereas for things like MOBAs and for things like ARPGs, because they're frequently updated, these people have an affinity for the people who are designing the game, because it is necessary for them to basically be accountable for the decisions that they make when they make changes to the patches.
But again, where I'm fixating here is that we're specifically talking about like women that started on The Sims and then moved over to this game. I feel like that specific audience doesn't care who made the game.
Probably not.
Like that, like they almost certainly, I think, would have no idea who made the game, and they're just going over because their friends did.
Well, if it really depends, because it's the perspective of, is this person going because of the friends, or are they the kind of person that's going because I want to support something that's woman-led? There's literally a sector of the business that is all designed around, we want women-led designers, we want women-led writing teams, we want women-led developers, and we call out and we name the companies that do it, as it is literally a part of the picture of it.
I think that games succeed not like and develop an audience not because of that, but in spite of it.
Yes.
Because I think if that strategy worked, then we wouldn't see companies like Sweet Baby Inc. and whatnot like failing and collapsing, and we wouldn't see big video game developers starting to kind of move away from these narratives. And not only that, but we wouldn't see media in general starting to move away from these kinds of narratives. I think that was a strategy that looked like it worked because a very small number of very loud voices were basically just echoing out in the captured social media environment during the COVID era. And now we're seeing that fade away, as they retreat into their controlled spaces like Blue Sky and whatnot.
Yes, I would agree with you if it were not for the fact that the industry has that apparatus, because I'm not saying that you're wrong. What I'm saying is
Sure.
that the inclusion and creation of these companies and their forward stated goal of effectively trying to worm their way into the business, to take credit for things so that they can say the reason this game is good is because of us, and then to abdicate responsibility and effectively abandon things that are outright stinkers, that does not stop the factor of the people who are only solely invested in the marketplace to specifically look to support those factors. Because I know that there are way too many women that, of those playing The Sims, they are very politically motivated. There are writers that have written for Polygon and written for Kotaku that are the perspective of these people. The average person, the normie, probably doesn't. But the activistic person, they are. And many of them go to these...
What percentage of the players that are moving over to Warframe from The Sims are these activist types, and what percentage are just like the normie types? Is it mostly just the activist types, and then like the normie types just stay playing The Sims, or
it's gonna probably be something like 30 30 20 30 40, where you're gonna have 30% of the people who are moving, they're moving because my game is dead, it's dying, and I want to find something else to do it. 20% are going to be, or 40%, whatever is the smaller number between 30 and 30 that fits 100. Another 30% are going to be moving because I heard this game is good, and I'm going because my game is dying, and I am going there because there are people that play this that are also going to be playing that too, and I want to play and hang out with them. Because that's the same factor that led people to go from WoW to Final Fantasy XIV. For the same reasons where they were being antagonized and bullied. And then the remaining percentage is going to be those people that are politically motivated, politically active, who are very much pink hat wearers that are going because they want to support based on that number. It's going to be some type of a number that, depending on the people who are doing it, and if that person then is someone who is going to move for that influence, they are investigating the people who are leading it, and they are entrusting it because they want to specifically go there to support that factor. Because that's also not...
A significant minority, basically.
Yes, a significant minority. That they are moving specifically, not just and only because, but it's one of many factors. For the people that are doing it specifically because... hyper minority. In general of, I'm going to play this game. I want to find this game that has people going to it, that is welcoming to women. I found Warframe. I want to just look up who's on the team, because I want to see what their philosophy is, what their goal is, for whatever reason a person normally would. Me, I usually do it to see whether or not it's a waste of my money to invest in the game. Who are the people who are leaders of it? What do they think? What do they talk about? Oh, I found Rebecca. Who is she? Oh, she's a higher-up person. Oh, she's also going on stage. Oh, she's a recognizable person. Oh, she's the face of the company speaking to the people who responds to them on the patches, for updates, for news articles, for events, for public speaking events, for anything that has with the business. I'm gonna go here because I think I could trust this person to basically have their head on where they're going with the industry. That they trust this in the industry. It is like that when they are looking for those motivations. And men do the same thing too. They may only trust a certain developer, or they must trust that a certain handful of people who are on the team are leading the team in the right direction, and thus leading the game in the right direction. Because if this person is responsible for the updates that make the game playable, they are going to blame them, Boomer. That's why. That's why it's important.
I guess probably part of the problem and understanding here for me is that I've never really been a big player of I guess what do you call like games where
online
like
live service games?
Service?
Yes.
Yeah, live service games. Yeah, I've never been a big player of those kinds of games. For me, like it's like a very unappealing genre. I much prefer like games like, you know, I'm a bit of a boomer, let's be real, when it comes to video gaming, you know? Like, I come from the era of going to Best Buy and getting Tiberian Sun on you know, off of the shelf in a box that was like the size of a fucking cereal box, you know? And then, like, getting an explicit physical expansion pack that also came in a giant cereal box-sized box. And to me, like, the idea of a game that is never finished, you know, to me, it's very unappealing. It doesn't really like make sense to me, you know. Like I've never understood why anyone would want to play these games, especially also because so often, you know, when the game hits end of life, it becomes completely unplayable. Whereas in, you know, I can go and I could still play Tiberian Sun, you know, even though it came out in like 1999, you know, right now on my computer.
I think the answer that most people would agree on, including in the business, is that it is a social experience that they are selling you. That they are selling you both the experience of the content that is available and also the ability to enjoy this content with other people, which is written directly into the EULA and the TOS. Which is why something like...
But we had social experience too. We had LAN parties, dude. LAN parties were amazing.
Yes. It would be the case...
I miss LAN parties.
It would be the case in that sense, Boomer. The thing that I'm speaking to that you don't necessarily attach to is that these companies and companies that make live service have effectively cannibalized this concept that you are familiar with, and they have created it into this thing that they are basically buying and selling our fat asses back to us.
Everything has been made into an MMORPG almost. It's like you can't find anything that's like not an MMORPG. You know, it's like. I remember when MMORPGs were like this revolutionary thing, you know, like you were playing like RuneScape and RuneScape 2, you know, or OSRS as they call it now, and these were like, you know, epic crazy things. It was like, dude, can you believe this? You know, I can get on here and play, and like there's like 1,000 people from all over the world. But now it's like all that they want to make. I just don't get it.
For some people, especially the game that I'm currently playing, the appeal is to experience this content, and it acts as like a temporary home where you then consume other content and then come back and play it as a type of forever game. Some people would probably do one all the time, and then they pivot off of that game to go experience something as a tourist, which would be the case of OSRS. Whereas in something like this, especially Warframe and Path of Exile, this is something that you could play for 3 to 4 seasons after experiencing the content that comes in through the balance patch that is the introduction of new content. That then once you have consumed it and you are fulfilled with it, you then do something else. And then everything in that game, in the core experience, is the permanent fixture. Of course, this precludes the live service experience, but if you look at it from the basis of, say, Diablo 2, which was the first example of a battle box that you got the core experience in the vanilla, and then you got the expansion that it was then built upon, as was the case for Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls, which I think was probably the actual last battle box that had an experience like this before everything went to the digital storefront, and thus became the marketplace of Sakana. They want you to include yourself in that core gameplay experience with content that is presented as feature complete. And then they make more content that will then become feature complete content that will entice more people down the line. So you have this vertical slice of a product that you're presenting to people that shows a new, untested experimental providence that then gets balance tested by people. That then is the appeal factor of new content that is playable, that allows them to do the same thing that they used to do again, similar to an autism simulator, but is a social experience that then creates a actual marketplace that speaks back to the same type of marketplace that would exist inside of WoW or any other MMORPG. That then resets itself so as to make things new and fresh. Similar to a Fresh Start world and the leagues and the seasonal leagues that are done in OSRS from things like, say, the Deadman Mode League, the return of the League Trials for Trailblazer League, the league before that, and so on and so on. I'm forgetting the name of them off the top of my head. But some type of temporary seasonal side content mode that next to your normal progression on your account is on the secondary season that allows you to experience this. And it
draws you back in.
And it draws you back in to make the game fresh and reinvigorate your love for it. I will say,
I do know people who have been playing Path of Exile for like years and years and years and years, and if they start talking about it, it's like, well, that's our next 2 hours of conversation is going to be me listening to them talk about Path of Exile. So they do obviously make a product that is appealing to people.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's yes, I understand. But yeah, going back to the why is it this and why would there be women that do it, that is the reason why. Basically, it is the kind of buyer trust and the kind of brand identity trust that has been built up over the years that bring people to that concept that if they did not trust this person, they would not be there. They would not be there for it. It is something that I myself would find preposterous, but if you actually look into it and you ask them, it's like, yeah, I trust a woman on this team to be the person who's delivering this content because I know that means that blah, 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 blah. In the example of League of Legends, they harassed players the way that they did over their decision to type in games because it is the trust that if I'm a woman and I get harassed this way for being bad at playing video games, that I know that this shithead will get banned because the developers think the way that I do. That is basically quintessentially the idea of what it comes down to. There is an appeal factor that this person only wants to be involved in the content if it shows that their worldview is matched by the people who are not only developing and balancing the game, but are also responsible for the removal of people from the marketplace. And that is then encompassing to the other part of the problem, which is, okay, so how do you know that these people are making good decisions and they're not just completely audience captured by these individuals? You cannot. Because this person might be going there for specifically this kind of influence, and they're not necessarily there to play the game, but they're there to be a part of the marketplace
it kind of
intellectually.
That they are explicitly audience captured. Like, the audience is going to these specific creators because they know that these creators explicitly pander to the kind of content that they want to consume. And also, from what you're saying, sounds like they're also creating the environment that these specific people want to play in rather than a environment that appeals to everybody. They're going for one that they know narrowly scopes down to them specifically.
Yes. And a lot of that comes not just from gender, but specifically from the demographics themselves. Because the kind of people that would go there for that are the same people that would be playing cozy games to be excluded from such an environment unless they knew there was somebody that was on a team, say a chud, or in the case of the liberals, a devout Antifa super soldier that basically thinks the way that they do. It is the kind of apparatus. It is the kind of apparatus that if your only evaluation of it must be monetary, you miss, because that's a attack vector that is used to then control it. Because if this
basically, if they're going to play an online game that's like kind of a sandbox online game where anyone can join, they want the moderator team to be like a bunch of big reds.
Yes. Yes, they do. Yes. This is the case with things like Riot Games, because they were the ones that set this standard in the industry about how people should moderate for this perceived toxicity. The normal thing that we encountered on Xbox Live has become a sanctionable behavior for even if you were to use an emote that they perceive as negative. And if they have control of this content, where a private audience, a private company can do what they want, but a private company can make an example of a public figure who has a lot of sway to the point that they can say, even we won't let you do this, which was the case with Tyler 1, which was made a case recently with the banning of somebody like Tarzan, of the world's famous troll in League of Legends, which was the case with ISO Speed from Riot Games entirely because of the exact thing I described earlier, a woman crying wolf and playing up for content and for clout, access to media, to get this person to come down on them this way, to basically punish them for behaving in a way that they didn't like. And not just this person said something they didn't like and they specifically targeted them, but I don't like you and I want to personally affect you. Those are the things that actually draw them to do it. Because in the case of Warframe, it's a game that basically is an open story slash visual novel with ARPG elements. And this would be the factor that would draw them, because it is basically a movie that they get to interact with and watch, comparative to the same in other genres for these factors. I don't know why we ended up spending so much time on this, but I guess this is a very productive thing for us to talk about. But
I don't know, it's an interesting topic. I kind of tend to do that.
It's okay. That's okay. But I think at this point, because I think he doesn't have much else to say until it gets to the final point of the clip, we can probably get off this and now get back to the debate, because we've technically been here for 2 hours.
Yeah, no worries. All right.
The shadow of the long eclipses all! The shadow of the long eclipses all!
The what?
The shadow of the long. Shadow of the long man. Mauler. EFAP. Every friend will pause.
Oh, okay.
They can end up going on long tangents of a conversation where they will end up talking about things that are relevant, and that might create a side tangent of a side tangent, that this is how you end up getting the Jenny Nicholsoning. I'm sure you're familiar with that. If you're not, I can tell you.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so, EFAP, way back in the beginning, back when Dishonored Wolf was part of the cast, they had done a review of them disagreeing with something from a content creator and an influencer who used to be a part of a creator network by the name of Jenny Nicholson. People continue to use that stream of theirs as, look, they reacted to and harassed a woman for 12 hours. But the actual time that they spent talking about her content was less than 5 hours, less than 4 hours. Of course, people still accuse them of, it shouldn't take you X amount of time to talk about content of this way. You shouldn't take X amount of hours to talk about a 20-minute video. But it is the case that when you're interested in topics and you're talking to people for more than just the content that's there, you can end up speaking in such a way that you end up covering multiple content segments that are interesting to the people who are watching, and that this being the thing that you produce, as is the famed VFAB.
Sure.
There's histories of the channel where they actually cut out the material that wasn't relevant to her and showed that they did not harass a woman for 12 hours, but it is the case that every single time that's done, it is basically the critique of your video is too long, so I refuse to watch it, and I know you have a history of harassing people and being way too long-winded. I will ignore any argument you make because I don't like you because your video is too long. Which is basically being used in video essay format to say, if your video is too long to my liking, it's never an actual number. It's never about a number of it being too long or being too short. If I don't like the person who made the critique, I'm going to say that it's slop. If I like the person who made the critique, I'm going to watch every single second, and it's necessary that you react to every single second. Otherwise, you didn't actually get what the person says. It's been used for history to attack people.
It is harder for me to watch, like, say, like Adam and Sitch, right? Adam and Sitch sometimes have streams
for hours,
they will
for
be
days,
on a
for
topic.
days.
Like, yeah, like literally, I'll start it like when I first, like they'll be on when I first wake up, and then I'll stop watching it after like 2 or 3 hours, and then I come back, and then like, 5 hours later they're still going, and it's like, dude, this is like full-time work at this point.
Well, it is their job. But yeah, it is the case...
It is their job. It is their job. It's true.
But yeah, that's exactly what I'm describing. In the case of what I say, the Jenny Nicholsoning. You're too long-winded. I don't like what you're saying. I think you could say it in a shorter amount of time. Therefore, what you're saying is irrelevant because I don't want to listen. That happened multiple times during this debate, where they didn't want to listen to even 60 seconds of me explaining something. Then it then becomes a case of, well, what you're saying isn't relevant because you're not talking faster. But if I had done the same thing to them, it would have been wrong.
I think part of it, and this is, something that I do notice, I think part of it is, like, obviously during the beginning, things are pretty well handled, with when it's just you and are relevant, but once, like, they start bringing in, like, once they start bringing a bunch of people in, and we'll see that, I think you start getting dogpiled a bit, and it does seem like you get a little flustered at that point, and then I think at that point they stop listening.
The problem that happens is that they are actively talking over each other in such a way where there is no pause in the conversation to actually rebuttal, and they are actively bypassing any argument I made to obfuscate on purpose, and that's where the annoyance happens.
When it's 1 on 8, I mean, it's kind of hard.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm gonna be stepping out for a little bit unless you just called me. But I would say that I don't think you actually need a performance plan, if I'm gonna be honest. You did well back then. I'm just gonna be really honest, because given the circumstances,
I think the circumstances could have been better, for sure. There's like strategies I'm sure that could, make the outcome a little better, but I mean it's only going to improve so much given the situation when there's so many others versus one.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's actually watch the debate in question before people start saying too long didn't watch.
However, wants to come in and back up Asmongold and what he says. So we're gonna have
not necessarily back up Asmongold, but explain the reason why it'd be the case.
Thank you all for being here. Really,
because every single time they kept trying to say this, it felt like they were trying to tell me, "Bro, aren't you an Asmongold watcher?" And it's like, no, I'm not.
Get on with it, okay? Here you go.
Hey, I'm Carl. My base is here today is that I don't inherently believe the relevance position is posted from the viral clip from Meet 20K, or the ones that are being circulated around LSF really tells the actual position, quote, that women and feminists haven't ruined gaming, because I don't believe it's approaching reality with someone who actually plays and streams video games regularly as a part of how they make their money. especially if they do one part politics and one part gaming, and that it's an Asmongold-related case of social contagion for attention, because they disagree with Asmongold, therefore anything he says must be wrong, even if there is some level of truth or an entire truth that is reflected by the industry itself, coming from actual industry professionals that know this for a fact and have the sites and the graphs to back it up, whether it be from Solinome, whether it be from the business industry itself looking in on itself, or even Circana numbers. I don't believe that it's all women, I don't believe that it's all men, I don't believe it's all transgenders, but there is a very obvious and very well-known group and archetype of public-facing creators and attention-seeking political activists that go out of their way to seek fame in a way that has eroded the high social trust that used to exist a quarter of a century ago, leading to current year today, that are responsible for the occupations of businesses and spaces and development cycles, to the point that people have learned to defend themselves from these types of users, the type of all-consuming dominating rhetoric, and ultimately to the point that denying the existence of this is tantamount to exposing oneself as not being from these spaces and unaware of the actual culture and how it develops, either because they, quote, are elitist towards people who are elitist towards other people who tone police them about how they enjoy games, or ultimately participate in the player base, but they're not actually of the community because they're off by themselves, because they conflate the difference between playing single-player games to actually being a part of an online community that speaks to each other, as that's how most of us get our fame. Attention economy. It's my goal to find common ground with the relevant and establish these common cases and occurrences are coming from the middle ground, not from any side of any extreme, and ask him why he particularly overreacts to Asmongold's takes, Zachary's takes, and try to apply this as a broad stroke to everyone in the sphere, and see whether or not the conversation can develop from there. Pause.
Well, thank you for being here. Really excited to have you, and I guess we'll get into it as we go. Irrelevant, tell people who you are, what you
Pause real quick.
listen to you, and what are your thoughts? Go
Yep.
ahead.
So, I could have probably used a lot shorter words there. I could have said Irrelevant is a tourist fuck and he doesn't know what he's talking about. That would have probably...
It would have opening up with hostility would have been bad, though, I think.
Yes.
I mean, one thing, I mean, I was immediately thinking that you didn't say, but I feel like applies to, when you were saying that denying these things exist makes you look like someone who is not really aware of what is happening, who's like not actually a part of things, basically saying that he's a tourist. It could also mean that he's actively involved as well.
I think that was mentioned after the fact, but it was to the point.
Yeah.
It was to the point that now that you have reviewed the content from his stream, just that snippet I gave you, you can see that I'm clearly calling him out on his rhetoric he says. And if you look there at his facial expressions, he's acting like, huh? What? Huh? What? What? Huh?
Right.
Because he's like, he knows this is what he said. And then when I refer to this and I show the example from his clip, he's like, yeah, whose base takes are those? So it's like, yeah, you are demonstrably a part of the problem. You are the case example of exactly the person I'm describing. You don't know what's going on. Because you live in politics land. You claim that your content is only politics. Why would I ever talk about gaming on my channel? But here you are demonstrating that your only purview to politics is when you can criticize Asmongold. So, it doesn't follow track that you actually know what's going on here. Certainly, I could have made shorter words by saying, I don't think that it's all people, but I went through the list so that there was no pivoting to other people. Like, you couldn't use women, you couldn't use men, you couldn't use transgenders, you can't make this about, well, you just hate when you have transgenders and stuff. You just hate when they have politics and stuff. It's like, no, I hate when fucking tourists try to speak about things that they don't know, and they demonstrate that they're fucking tourists. And that you then direct my industry to try and focus on shit that isn't important, because you desperately want to blame the boogeyman.
Right.
It could have been made. It could have been made less wordy. It could have been simplified. It could have been shorter. But I said everything necessary to cut off any and every avenue for escape. Okay, keep playing.
Okay.
I'm Irrelevant. I typically talk about politics and like social commentary, but also I play a disgusting amount of video games, so I feel pretty qualified to talk about especially modern video games and stuff like that, how they've changed recently. And yeah, Yes, the Asmongold clip upset me because this is a dude who plays like one video game trying to say that the entire modern landscape for video games is like tarnished when he doesn't play modern video games. Like he just doesn't do that. 80% of the good games that come out today, he just literally does not play them. He sits there, maybe he'll play some WoW, but he'll primarily do social commentary or reaction videos. Like if you are a person who plays modern video games, you know that the landscape is actually very, very, very good for modern video games. But, yeah.
Okay, we'll get into it. I guess, what do you mean by modern video games? Would be my first question. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so the idea is, with the prompt and stuff like that, is that feminism or women have ruined gaming. And this idea would create a present tense that video games are now like worse or in severely lower condition than what they used to be. And it's just not the case. We have like damn near a golden age when it comes to indie video games and stuff like this. You could talk about the degradation of like AAA titles kind of looping in on themselves, but you would primarily look at the catalyst for this being actually more male-dominated games. Things like fucking FIFA 39 for the 50 billionth time being the exact same game, kind of manifesting from there, and not like, you know, Megabonk and all these different games that like kind of went hyper viral for a good bit of time and are very good games.
Pause.
We're having a surge of very, very, very...
All right.
Megabonk went hyper viral around the time when people were discussing that it existed and that it was good, but it went very viral when the developer of Megabonk had to step out of a contest because it was revealed by the game's nomination for a award that he chose to move himself away from it because the award that he was going up for was for new video game developer, and the person who made it was already an industry professional who had made other games. And then, what the fuck does FIFA have to do with the point? And why is it that you pivot to that and you say, well, this proves that modern games are actually good, when FIFA's probably the best case example of a decision that specifically is done because it's a monetary investment. For the same reason you could say with 2K. The same way that you could say with any wrestling game. The same way you could make with any seasonal and regular yearly installment. That would be less likely to be something that was affected by feminism and by politics in general, and one that would be more likely because of mercantilism. And yet you see how
I think that's the entire reason why he brings it up, as to try and say, well, actually,
so he's inflating them,
these
basically.
games aren't being messed up. These games aren't being messed up by feminism. They're being messed up by capitalism.
But see, that's
probably the argument being made.
You see, that's bullshit, because if he actually knew what he was talking about, he would know that half of them were brought up not just because they were good, but because it became a political zeitgeist. Because it was the case that this person and their game became popular, and they had either no politics, or this game became popular, and the creator is a chud. Or the creator is some type of political outsider, or political ne'er-do-well.
It's a deflection away from the actual topic, which is obviously centered around games that have had politics inserted into them, rather than FIFA 39, as he said.
I should have called him on this, both when he said it there, and then when he tries to do it again. But I didn't. And I definitely should have done that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Very good video games. In the current day, I see no evidence that gaming is getting worse, and especially to do with feminism or women.
Pause.
Carl, I assume you disagree. What's your argument here?
Okay.
Just like I said earlier, he says there's no examples of this happening, but I would argue that not being able to go to a certain game or being unable to enjoy certain content from a game without the fear of a sword of Damocles hanging over your head would stop people from playing multiplayer games that are both multiplayer and it has a lobby-based system, or multiplayer and a live service. I would say that a game possibly being removed from the marketplace and thus delisted and no longer purchasable because of how poorly that game performed on the marketplace because of a political decision to make the narrative of the content center to the work, and thus it failed because it was rejected for its politics, and saying that it's just mercantilism, like was the case with Dustborn, is an example of feminism affecting it. It's not just the single-player games and games being playable, because then at that point, you're not actually interfacing with the marketplace as a knowledgeable consumer. You're instead interfacing like a asynchronic robot. This game is playable, therefore there are multiple games to play. Rather than, I could try to play this game, but I wouldn't enjoy it, and I certainly wouldn't enjoy it as much because of this factor, and this factor. Which is central to my point that I was making. Because if a person is provoked by this kind of influence, then that is something ruining the experience for them. For example, it is the case that all of us know, when you go into multiplayer video games online, just basically mute the comms of your team. Because if they start flaming you, there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe your report gets listened to, and maybe they get punished. Maybe it's the case that nothing happens. But if you say something, there's a very high likelihood that you will be punished. So it's better that, rather than what would have been the case of the gaming influence from yesteryear, which was a part of the culture, of flaming, shit-talking, bad-mouthing, and jive-talking each other, it has changed because of the feminist influence, that you do not risk it. Because you do not know if the policy team will come down on your side or not. Okay, continue. Because the thing that he's trying to address is the idea of all video games as a contingency when it's two things together. The games that we're playing, well actually no, three things. The games that we're playing, the people who are playing them, and the space and the occupancy upon those people who collected themselves as both a player base and a community that interact with the games. So, to counter what he says, if I were to ask him something about Balatro or Expedition 33 this year or last year, I would have to ask him, is that a modern game or is that a non-modern game? Because they're new games, but they speak to the kind of loop that would exist inside of Exile 1 and Exile 2. I know that he plays Exile 1 and Exile 2. One of the clips that comes from his view, not the clip itself that was clipped onto the timeline, but the actual view that was on his kick. There's me specifying that I'm not talking about the viral clip. I'm talking about all of his live stream. Specifically, the session in the clip where, as usual, exactly is referring back to the attempt to browbeat him about the elitism of who are you to talk about this from playing an MMORPG when Steven plays nothing but autism simulators like Satisfactory. That it is browbeating people because the type of game that they play, they don't consider to be real gaming. Or in the example of what Irrelevant says, that if they only play one game, they don't play real games. These would be examples of AA or indie games that very much in the viewpoint of the current political zeitgeist when it comes to the sphere of influencing video games for development. There is a hatred of the AAA scene, or even the 4X scene, of these indies, because they are able to take people's lunches for millions of dollars with a game that only costs $15 versus something that's supposed to be a playable master experience of a type of story experience that you could get from something like, say, God of War and God of War Ragnarok, a remake created with the help of supposed DEI companies that are just the script authoring companies.
Just to short circuit a little bit, right? Just to short circuit a little bit and maybe get a little more direct.
Yes.
Can you point to the games that have been ruined by women?
Fantasy Star Online 2, and pretty much anything that ever goes terminally viral, like Arc Raiders, although I would say it's not women.
Okay, well, let's stick with Arc Raiders.
So, pause here.
Arc Raiders?
So, pause here.
Arc Raiders?
This right here was bad from Whick. I started to give a list of titles. He stops me, and he starts coming in like, Arc Raiders? The game where you can play with other people? And it's like, have you been looking at Arc Raiders? This game's entire culture was ransacked by streamers that basically turned this community-based game that brought people together that was designed for a more casual person, because it's basically a more casual Tarkov, which is to say, it's a... what is a good word to describe it? It is a extraction shooter that, rather than the old Slav jank that were very serious, very, very no-lifey, very hardcore, very people that are just chuds in a basement playing it nonstop, it brought in a casual audience to an extractor shooter market, and it presented a game that was not just, I take your stuff, I harass you, and I talk shit to you. Because the entire core loop of the game is that you, as a player, are a bunch of different Arc Raiders that are a part of a society that have to bring back resources, not just for yourself, but for everybody else. And that part of the loop of the game is it's basically designed like Deep Wilderness level 30 plus. So I know you know what OSRS is, but I will explain it for the people at home.
Yeah.
The Deep Wilderness of Gilnor is the entire black region that used to be called the environment of some fucking god that I can't remember from the lore. And that zone is known as the PvP zone of the game because it is where the highest risk and the highest reward can be risked. You do not go in with something you are not willing to lose, including your life, if you are something like a hardcore Iron Man or a normal group Iron Man. Because other people that are within 30 levels of you, as you keep going up through zones and zones and zones, can attack you. There's more than just plus 30 levels, but for the consideration, it's past plus 30. And the reason I make that specific number is because that's the point at which teleportation jewelry will no longer work. Past the 30 line, you are stuck in that zone. You either are leaving with your life, or you are going to die. And what happened in Arc Raiders is that the Burnt Peanut, Nade Shot, I say this again in the stream, but Burnt Peanut, Hutch, Nade Shot, Ninja, Courage, Nick Merckx, and several other content creators, both male and female, basically destroyed the culture of this game, monetizing it for clicks and views. They turned an extraction shooter that was meant to be more casual for a casual player base, male or female, into a non-stop battle royale. Because there is a augment in the game that gives you the ability to go into the zone for free with level 1 equipment. And basically, it is the equivalent in OSRS if you were to make a designed PvP account. A Rusher, an Anti-Zerger, an Anti-PKer, or a Hunter bot as an alternative to your full level main. So a character designed to attack people through the protection levels that would be afforded to them if they were a lower level player. So, for the people who can't imagine it, let's say I'm level 100, and you're on an account that's level 30. The only way that I can attack you is if I have an account that is within 30 levels of your account, so it has to be level 3 to level 33, or I get attacked by you. In this game mode, people went to this game because it was a more chill experience, because it is both a PvP, PvM game. You have to attack monsters to get loot, but you can also attack players to get loot. But the main goal of most of the content globally is that you have to actually donate your resources in order to unlock new zones and to get opportunities for new content. Because the strongest content is locked behind world bosses. So it's not inherently meant to be a non-stop, I kill you, I take your stuff loop. That's a way you could play it, but it's not the only way you could play it. In talking
or even the intended way to play
it. Yes,
it.
or even the intended way to play it, which that's an entire side argument itself, but outside the scope of this of the debate, especially what I'm saying.
Sure.
The reason I bring this up is because the culture of the game made it to a point where it was just a constant I kill you for your stuff free-for-all was not the intended goal of what the game's market was for. And it was literally ruined by one part, the feminist view that you shouldn't be toxic to people and you shouldn't be mean, but also by an inherently male, and there's no counter to what feminist is as a male unless you start mocking them and calling them a meninist, but red pill view of hyper-toxic, hyper-masculine, fuck you, I'm not trying to be your friend, I'm trying to communicate by putting this shot in your chest, brother, nature. That was inherently ruined by that marketplace. But it is because...
kind of like an Andrew Tate type mindset.
Yes. It was...
alpha male, giga Chad behavior.
It and other games like it, which the first one I said was Phantasy Star Online 2, were ruined by feminism and feminist dialectic, because in that game, that was an MMORPG. Kind of similar to the other ones we've discussed, but it's a lobby-based one, that the entire player base is affected by what everybody does, because our world events, which were called emergency codes, require a 4-man lobby of 12 to come together to complete content. And when the game was originally brought to the West from the East, because it was promised for years from Sega Japan at Sega West 2013-2014, it never fully got brought to the West until like 2018-2019, sometime before and into COVID. And it died during that time within a year. Because when it brought in the Westerners, they brought in their politics, and then they were more worried about being accepted for their gender and for their sexuality, rather than actually learning how to play the game at a base level. And there were people on staff at Sega in the Eastern Spear. Similar to the hatred that you can see from people like Aaron Hansen hating Sonic, but they're Sonic ambassadors. They hated the player base of the game, which was dress-up fighters and gooners, and banned 75% of them overnight for trumped-up charges. Many of them left the game entirely and then went to Final Fantasy XIV for the same reasons we discussed earlier that women went to Warframe. But mostly they left because we fucking hate woke people. You guys ruined our game. We're taking our money and our business elsewhere, and the game has faltered to a shell of its former audience and its former economic value because they banned the people who had the wallets. These games were 100% ruined by feminism and gaming. It's not debatable.
The problem, the problem with making that a focal point of the argument is like that's incredibly hard to prove, especially to someone like Irrelevant who's going to be like, well, he's going to fall back onto like the source, and I think Whick too, is kind of what they're trapping you in by going, can you list some? Is basically a source, whereas I think what would be an easier way to make this point would be to focus on the game development side of it rather than like the player base and or moderation base of the game.
Yes,
because it's going to be almost impossible to prove that the player base has been augmented negatively by feminists or what have you, and it's going to be definitely impossible to prove that the moderation actions have been influenced by such. Whereas it is readily demonstrable that the actual developers for a lot of games have been kind of sidetracked by these ideals.
Yes, and I do make that argument, but the same thing still happens anyways. So it's like whoopsie poopsie fuck me in the ass anyways. So it is. Yeah, it is the case that is a better argument to make, and I should definitely make that argument and try to later. But this is a case example of me, I guess, coming in way too expectant that they should know this because it was literally world news, and a little bit of a failure on my part to hold my footing and hold my ground because of the fact that I'm dealing with a person who's going to come from this very absurdist view of the game industry, where when you're talking to another industry professional who knows it, it's like, no, actually, you're wrong. And if you lie and say you're wrong, I'm going to pull out these numbers and prove it. Because with the player base, I could literally prove it by the player base numbers. They never recovered.
Yeah.
With the influencer with the influence of the development, when I try to pull the example of it, it's like, yeah, but why is this example of her reflecting herself in the work demonstrable this being a problem with women in gaming? It's like, you won't let it develop because you don't want to hear what's being said, and it's being cut off not just by the other person but also by Whick himself.
Right.
It's first of many examples of it happening, but
yeah.
Moving forward.
No worries.
This is ruined? Isn't that like doesn't Asmongold literally himself like Arc Raiders?
Well, as I said before, it's not just about women and feminists. It's about this particular kind of person, men and women too, that go out of their way that instead of actually... And this is me trying to explain that point about the males ruining it. With the attitude of feminists. And their opinions and how they think things should be done into the conversation and in the spaces of how people should play the games. And ultimately, it becomes a culture clash between people who are there for a thing that appeals to them versus what people say, this is what the genre's always been. This is how it's meant to be done. That then ultimately push people out of it. This was drama that actually came up from the Streamer Awards, featuring people like Burnt Peanut, because him, Hutchinson, Courage, Nate Shot, Ninja, Nick
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just...
Interrupts me.
What does this have to do with...
What does this have to do with Whipping Gaming? Getting to my point, interrupts me, isn't stopped.
They go out of their way...
I should tell him to shut the fuck up here.
Said what it was. Not just women, not just men.
I try to be nice about it.
They're being polite.
I'm trying to be nice about it, but he's going to keep doing this the entire debate.
Vision of culture.
And he's smiling while he's doing it, so he knows what he's doing.
And they specifically push down on people who would be coming in, that people would call tourists. And they project this view that this is how it is done. This is, quote, how we've always done it. Sometimes from the people that belong there, that you could call Neanderthals, losers, that play nothing but one.
Neanderthals, losers, chuds, basement dwellers,
and therefore they're unwilling to
meats, higginois, are people.
As you said in your clip from your channel.
And there's me again hitting him. These are your words. I'm quoting you directly.
That they refuse to experience an absolute broad of games
that they could enjoy that they don't enjoy, despite the fact that playing all of these different kinds of games on camera. That it's a social problem. It's not just the industry, it's not just the people playing them, it's the actual conversation that's going on, or as people like to mean about the left-wing diatribe about this, the way that they have the conversation about it. People are not getting the problem because they are looking for a boogeyman to blame the issue on, and actually, instead of actually talking about who's directly responsible. And if any person says anything that's out of lines of what is meant to be the diatribe from what is considered the cathedral, left, right, dead of center, or the extremes, which in this case we're describing the extremes, the dude bros, or the supposed crazy blue-haired feminists, that why should there's me quoting him again. Just play what you want. Which I pose the question is, why should anybody listen to you? It doesn't sound like you actually That's me quoting him again. in any serious way. Because most of the things you talk about are single player. You're not experiencing the multiplayer aspect, because even if you do play those games, you're not playing them on camera. You haven't played them on stream in years. Literally me quoting his solely known numbers. For Last of the Druids. But also, Carl, shut up. You've made your point now. Carl, shut up.
Yeah, I don't play games on stream.
So pause.
I said I was a political content creator. I play video
Pause.
games off stream. Do you want me to send you my Steam profile? Where
Boomer, pause the video.
Steam alone in various games.
Oh, pause.
Yes.
Like,
There you go.
So,
Sorry.
if I had said that more succinctly and shorter, that should have been the energy that I delivered most of my rebuttals with for the entire night. I could have been polite, and then also direct, and then slapped him in my response. Slap him on the cock.
I will say, like, that is definitely something that would help. Yeah, is just getting things compressed a little bit down. It is really hard, especially with people who are intentionally trying to feign ignorance. It is really hard to give a long description of things. You know, like, you kind of got to make sure everything is short and digestible so that there's not really a way for them to misinterpret it.
Mm-hmm. And you can hear it in my voice there that I'm literally remembering the breakpoints, and I'm including these things so that they cannot do that. And yet, what ends up happening is that I have to include so fucking much context that it gives them the ability to make the excuse that I'm being too long. And yes, in that instance, I can say, Carl, you're being too long. But I know why I'm doing it, because if I had not been interrupted, I would have already finished my point and we would have moved to the next point. Because I'm being interrupted constantly, I have to restate what I say. I can't let him pivot off of it, not let something be forgotten. It needs to come with me like luggage. Slapping it on the hand. I'm gonna pick it back the fuck up. This happens all the time in debates even, too. Like, you're interrupting me, I'm gonna finish my point and continue saying exactly what I said until you're done trying to filibuster me. That's effectively what I'm doing here. I'm doing it nicely, instead of directly antagonizing and saying, suck a cock and shut your mouth up and just listen, the chuds are talking. Which I guess would play better in this audience, but that's not what I'm supposed to be there for. I didn't try to go in hostile. I went in hostile enough. I quoted specific things from his own words and from his own argument that it's like, don't lie, because if you lie, I'm going to quote you directly. Now say this to the camera. You're talking to yourself. Argue with yourself, basically. I'm going to say here, argue with yourself. So when I said you said this, why did you lie to my face? Okay, argue with yourself again. Why did you lie when you said this too? I didn't get the chance to do that. And that's half my problem. That's my fault.
Yeah. I think that does come down to, like, you know, brevity is definitely, like, really helpful with making a point.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
It can be difficult. It can be difficult with complex points, but that's pretty much it. That's all I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with a guy like this, I think brevity is probably the big win.
Okay. Well, we can continue from here.
All right.
If you want to do a rap sheet, we can do a rap sheet. I didn't know that you were gonna like run my Steam profile numbers and talk about me only playing PoE during a free weekend. I mean, yeah, I love the game, and I shout it out to
He purchased the game, by the way.
Get my roommates and try and play it because it's a phenomenal game. But I'm waiting to hear how it got ruined by women.
I never said PoE was ruined by women. Where people are starting to be a part of enclaves, where if they don't have lots of opinions, they then shit on other people because they don't think how they think, both left, right, and in a center. That it's their job, and yes, again, I'm going to bring you back to this, not just feminism, not just women. I shouldn't have done this here. I shouldn't have restated that.
Yeah, Well, and he got you boxed in too, because you never said anything about PoE being ruined by women. Now he's got you trying to prove it, you know.
Because see, in my moment, I'm like,
he's
yeah. Like in my moment, I'm like,
it's giving, he's taking control basically.
Like in this, what I think my brain was trying to do is like, the industry can be affected by this. Like Path of Exile would not be exempt from this if it were to happen, but it doesn't, and I don't know why it is you're trying to reject that. Like the logic, the logic brain isn't catching up to what he's doing.
It's I think what it is, he's not trying to reject that. He's trying to put you into a situation of having to prove something that you didn't claim, and then also that you weren't prepared to prove.
I mean, like, you could try to tie the line as many ways as you could, but it wouldn't undo the overall factor of gaming as a whole is not, I play video games and I purchase video games, and that's where my involvement with it stops.
Sure.
Either way, this is retarded. Carl shouldn't have said that. Fuck you, Pass Carl.
Well, the clarity of hindsight is always 20/20, right?
We have a word for that in French. It's called the Spirit d'Escalar, which is also known as the Spirit of the Stairs. It's a very interesting word that basically means French thoughts. Like, the argument you have...
Forget your Cajun.
Yes, the arguments that you have with yourself as you're walking away from a place, and you start saying all the things you would have thought to say in the moment, but you didn't for one reason or another, including being interrupted and sidetracked by other things. It is a very fun word, because it describes basically any kind of argument a person could have. Especially if you wanted to say, oh, this guy's molding about what happened. It's like, no, I'm thinking about what happened, and then I'm talking to myself about it. Because, like, that entire conversation that we were...
I always think of my best comebacks after the fact, unfortunately. So I feel that.
So, the way that we were discussing it, and that I had then done to myself alone when looking back at this footage, that was basically Spirit de l'Escalar. And it's really helpful because it's a self-critiquing model. So it's not like I'm always right, I never did anything wrong. No, I can obviously say that I did something wrong. 100%.
Sure. Alright, let's go.
Mm-hmm. It is...
So you're trying to say enclaves, like groups infighting, like picking sides, was being caused by like women or feminism?
Yes!
In video games?
Yes! They made an enclave where you must point everything out and be hyper-political all the time, which ruins the ability to have fun.
That's where it started. Okay, so you believe that there wasn't tribalism amongst the gaming community before women, by and large, got...
See, that's so stupid what he's trying to say this, man.
It's like, you think that there wasn't enclaves that also did this before women in gaming? Yeah, but women literally took power and they bared down with their views and their politics. 100%. That doesn't preclude my point. You're actually arguing for my point.
Your whole screen.
I feel like I just got exposed. But
I hope so.
But hey, come on. But no.
He tries to push this off by being playful. I should have not let him get away with that either.
Testing and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll agree that since it got politicized, it's gotten like worse. But that wasn't.
But also, I should have done my own version of this, where I should have also allowed any attack to roll off me by being playful.
Where it really was not.
Yes, I think that actually.
Like this, that it's ruining gaming. Like I've seen no evidence for it ruining gaming. Back to the.
That is a thing I think can be helpful, is if you can keep the air kind of light, it does help from it turning into blood sports, but yeah.
Despite it already being blood sports, but less blood sporty. Less blood sporty.
I literally think we can find clips of
right.
Gold himself, the dude who is the reason we're having this conversation, saying Arc Raiders is a phenomenal game. So,
well, if you stop interrupting people and let them finish thought, you'd find out. This would be the first time of me saying this, like, nigga, shut up.
Right. I said everybody did it. Everyone did it irrelevant. The feminists did it, the feminists did it, the chods did it, people in the middle did it, everybody did it, and it started making it into a place where nobody can have a conversation about anything, because the second that somebody said, this is what I like, somebody jumped down their throat to the equivalent of, so you said you don't like bananas? Nigga, I said I like apples. What are you talking about? And don't place it as say I didn't like bananas. Replace apples and bananas with whatever genre you want versus what people would think is the masculine version or the feminine version of what should appeal to demographics. And that's the entire caucasity of it. It is basically multiple circles of interest. 1 second.
I have to yell about something outside my room.
Circuits of interest that all collectively together decided to make a culture war that then responded with people ignoring the people in the middle. It's like, bro, I don't give a fuck about any of this. I'm having a billion cakes I can eat. And in the case of Arc Raiders was not ruined by, quote, feminism, although technically these people are politically correct to begin with. And part of that
So yes, feminism.
With the scene being fucked up with people deciding to make money
was that?
or culture. So
that was the response to it. Like, when I said not specifically feminism, it's like, it's not being ruined by the ideology. It's being ruined by people who follow the ideology. Who are politically correct. Sure. And then at the same time, or being performative to make it seem like, no, they're just a normal dude, bro. Like, no, it's not. Burnt Peanut is 100% a Hassanite. Like, that was a thing that he did while being in that social group.
Well, and I think, and to harken back to his talk about, like, oh, you think people didn't form groups, you know, back in the day, whatever. Well, it's like, they did, but, you know, people weren't forming groups and things in video games based on political lines, you know, like, they were forming clans and guilds and stuff. And they were based on in-game interests and play styles and alignments and, you know, basically just in-game gangs, you know, rather than, you know, it's not like people were like going like, we're the Republicans and we're the Democrats, you know, they weren't applying real-world politics to the formations of their guilds and clans. Mm-hmm. That definitely is something that started with the maybe like, you know, what, 2010s, 2012, around 2012, 2013 or so, when the you know, feminist politics really started like kind of taking center stage.
You'd probably want to track it to like when Reddit started to pop off more, because the people that started this were themselves political, so you would have to go trace them to the evolution and the inclusion.
When Tumblr banned Gooner content and all of those people went to Reddit. That's when it started.
Well, they went to Reddit, they went to Tumblr, and you know what's kind of messed up about Tumblr's whole audience, because I started using it around 2012 and it was way more of a chill environment. You could tell that it was mostly adults that were using it. Yeah. I know there are people like, oh, I was 12 and I was using Tumblr. I'm like, I don't believe you. Because I was seeing people's pages and they had, you know, genitalia everywhere for some reason.
Right.
It would have been
sexual.
It would have been the case that if you were on Tumblr at that age, you were one of the minorities who should have been banned off the site.
Probably.
Yes, but it was ruined by, you know, predators, essentially. Because you had groups that were on there saying that, oh, if you did this or fan art, or if you like this sort of fictional content, you should be banned off the site. And they would get people to harass others and, you know, make a bunch of false flag reports to get people that they didn't like banned. Meanwhile, there was a whole network of predators that were teaming, and it got so bad that it got out of control because they couldn't control the amount of like illegal material that was being shared on the site.
And that is effectively
you have kind of a combination of like the modern left's inability to gatekeep combined with like proto cancel culture.
Yes, and that is like
there's just like a lot of them. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt, Carl.
Yes, and that's literally the mechanism that I'm describing when I described that behavior in those audiences. They are effectively the groups of people that cannot self-select, cannot control, and cannot contain, that are effectively now responsible for these groups being affected by this behavior and these patterns. And they are the responsible part that is effectively a good example of exactly that mechanism in function that I'm describing. Go ahead. That was what I was trying to say. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Saf?
I mean, I wanted to say something about how, like, they were being either willfully ignorant or just letting, you know, dangerous people... just letting it happen. they could
think
like,
a
yeah, I guess it's the case, but there was a
And
lot of
then
them protecting their own.
Tumblr didn't they had an IPO, didn't they? And then at that point they banned everything.
Yes.
I forget which IPO. What was that?
I think it was Tumblr. Tumblr had an IPO, and then like the shareholders became aware of all of that goings.
Oh, it was probably
like,
Yahoo.
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
owned
So
it.
Yahoo owned. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yahoo owned VIP. They got wind of it. They said no porn allowed, and thus they started their migration from that platform to another platform to create a same
Reddit and Twitter.
Yes, a same centered social hub for that exact same behavior for those exact same purposes, exactly to the one-to-one that I'm comparing here. And those were done specifically to find safe places and hovels for them to put that content.
Yep.
Most things started getting sanitized thanks to Twitch. The problem there is that you had people that went in for a group experience that everybody could be able to play whatever way they want, which for people who have not played Arc Raiders, it's equivalently a separation of old school RuneScape's Deep Wilderness Past 30. You are playing what is meant to be an extraction shooter, but unfortunately after the Hutchinson / Bungalow raids, after the Hutchinson / Bungalow raids and the entire culture that was discussed on TikTok, the never-ending back and forth about who's a real player, how to really play the game, what is a right way to play the game and a wrong way to play the game has now turned into actually just another battle royale. Because instead of actually doing what even the developers envisioned was the goal of the game, to have a player versus environment versus player game where you have.
This is something we can
Pause.
dig into.
Yeah, we can get into
Whick shouldn't have interrupted me there, because I was literally 5 words away from being done with my sentence. Which was literally, they took this game, the constant online social behavior of what I would say is an inherently feminine trait, singling people out, presenting oneself as the most holy and the most devout, the most knowledgeable and therefore the most deserving to speak, deciding to change it into something that should befit the culture as they want it, not as it exists and as it deserves to be. All of that collectively, for the individuals, the content creators, and literally the social conversation, another feminine trait, would be responsible for what killed that game. So rather than necessarily the job of feminism as an ideology killing it, it is the feminist behavior and the feminist traits of social contagion killing the game. And he should have let me finish talking for another five fucking words. Literally 3 seconds. It would not have been outside of the scope of it. Just let me finish talking for 3 words as this being a part of it. But at the same time, Carl, should I have gone through and given all of that caveat? No, I should not. I should not have.
I think one thing that keeps you on the back foot throughout this debate too is you're the one answering questions constantly. Whereas then I think there should be like you have to make a conscious effort to like cut off questions sometimes and then cut in with your own. Because I think one of the things that Whick does is, and I don't think this is biased, but I think this is just like the way he hosts, is when someone is answering a question, if they make a claim during the answer, he's going to ask a question about that claim, and it does kind of give the opponent the upper ground. And in this case, so in this case, because you're always the one answering questions, or almost always the one answering questions in this debate, it keeps our relevant on the upper ground, the high ground, and then you're basically ceding the high ground to him by not cutting in with questions of your own for him to prove.
The problem wasn't that I didn't have. I agree with you. The problem wasn't that I didn't have them. It's that they would pivot the conversation away before I could be able to answer anything or question anything. Like I'm explaining a point.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like you have to cut in with your question.
I suppose the way that I would have viewed it is that I finished. Let's say he does it the way that you just described. He asks, he asks a question. I answer the question. I then shoot back with my own. He tries to say, "Well, can you explain this?" I'm like, "Yes, I can." Boom, answer. Now answer me this. Never get to do that because I'm asked a question, then I'm asked another question. He filibusters the answer I'm giving to the answer of the question, and effectively, the way that I would describe it, he is being given a ability to sleep in the winner's circle. I don't know if you're aware of fighting game culture. Are you aware of fighting game culture?
I'm aware of fighting culture where the winner's circle is a thing. I
So,
have friends who are UFC fighters.
So, in tournaments, when you're playing in the fighting game scene, in the FGC, there are 2 brackets that players get entered into that they go into when they compete in their game, and they either are winners or losers. There is the winners bracket and the losers bracket. Winner circle, loser circle. We're facing head to head. But in this instance, because I am constantly having to answer a question, and then I'm being filibustered when I'm giving an answer to the thing that they're asking, and they're doing it intentionally, on purpose, to try and keep me constantly talking, to exhaust me, to aggravate me, whatever. He is being allowed to sleep in the winner circle. He's refreshed. He doesn't have to get pressured. He doesn't have to answer anything. He can basically sleep through what's happening and get woken up so he can then throw another thing out, which allows him to pivot away, which is what you're describing to me, is what's happening. And
so I don't necessarily think that they're trying to do that.
I don't think Whick collectively is doing
Relevant is. Well, I don't think Whick is not doing anything intentionally like that. I think Irrelevant is using silence and also the lack of questions being directed to him to his advantage. That's like a pretty standard, like it's straight out of The Prince. Like Machiavelli's The Prince is what he's doing, like the strategy. I don't know if he's consciously doing that, but it is an explicit strategy described in The Prince is be quiet and let your opponent talk as much as possible.
Yes. Like, I'm not saying that's what he's doing intentionally or that Wick's doing it intentionally. It's the effect that's happening right now. We're describing the same thing.
Yeah.
The effect of me having to do this is that he gets to sleep in the winner's circle. And I'm not being able to give my own questions back to his questions to press him on a subject matter because of Wick and Irrelevant constantly interrupting me. Part of this, you could say, is because I'm taking too long to answer a question. Because I'm giving caveats to not give him the ability to pivot away from shit. So it's like, nigga, I already talked about this edge. Let's move on.
Well, and I think there's really two strategies for this. And then the one strategy is to just bluntly refuse to answer the question and then insert a question of your own. And then the other strategy is what Destiny does, which is just to talk constantly at the same time as the other person. Obviously, I prefer the refuse to answer the question, state that it's irrelevant, and then ask one of your own strategy. Myself.
I suppose the difference here, and this is definitely a thing I need to accept, is that Wick is not trying to inform people. Because I went in with the ability of, okay, I'm going to try to give you a chance. You claim that you're from my sphere. I'm going to give you a chance to learn something. I should not do that. I should bully him as much as fucking possible while making the point clear and relevant so he cannot walk away from what's being said. Because if I go in with the intention of trying to educate, it's never going to work.
I think Wick is just I think he's also a little bit biased in favor of Irrelevant's position already. And it's not like an extreme bias, but I do he definitely is on more the center left side of things than the center right side of things. And I think that plays into this a little bit.
I suppose I would not do something as uncouth as attack the moderator of the debate at his own debate.
No.
But it's one of those things where it's like I'm trying to be considerate and consider that, okay, maybe if I explain this, the moderator will understand the reason I am coming at this with my argument and will be able to allow me the space to make my point, especially since this person will not shut the fuck up trying to interrupt me. But I have to go in with the understanding that he may just be asking because it is basically a contract obligation of his to give me the ability to speak, or rather I should say the opportunity to speak, but whatever I say, if it doesn't feel like it's going in a direction that it has a particular conclusion that he's looking for, he's just going to simply pass over me. And that's going to lead to annoyance and agitation, which I can very much it does.
I do think though, but that's where the advantage lies in making it so that Irrelevant is having to answer questions as well, because I mean that is a thing, like you're very willing to answer questions and to go on a good long dialogue about those questions, and I think the irrelevant knows that and uses it to his advantage.
I suppose. So I should just call. So again, I should just start calling him slurs. I should tell him no, fuck you.
No. You
What?
should redirect. You should redirect questions back at him. Is what you should do. So when he asks you, if he asks, when these questions start coming to you, you should find ways to make it to where he also has to answer questions. Like I don't see. Can you explain to me why how this question is relevant to what we're talking about? Because a lot of times the questions don't seem to really be relevant. Like asking you to list off, to make a list of games. It's like, why should I have to make a list of games in this situation? Like my response would have been like, can you list? Would you be able to provide a list of developers that are politically minded, equivalent? It's like kind of like redirecting it back towards them.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I was saying in the context of outside of the debate, I should call them a slur. Inside of a debate, I should counter the question with a question. Like, you should explain...
Outside of the debate, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, so inside of the debate, you demand this question of me. I'm going to demand the counter-posing question to you. If you are not willing to do it, automatically I should say, okay, then nicely, go fuck yourself. This isn't relevant. You don't get to ask that. If he does, however,
right.
What do we do then?
If he answers it, then I mean, I guess
not just that he answers it, that he actually answers it satisfactory. Not that he just does it offhand, the way that he does multiple times throughout the debate by just listing off some by name.
If he answers it in a satisfactory way, then that I think establishes that he has a good faith reason to be asking that question. And then at that point you can that also gives you time to be thinking about, while he's answering your counter question, you can be thinking, in relation to the way that he answers the counter question of a better way to answer the original question.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could say, okay, well, rather than, I don't like in my opinion personally, like rather than like providing a list of games that have been affected in this way, it would be better to answer it in a way that moves it into talking about the actual development side of things, because I think like the development and like administration of the games in a like political, explicitly feminist manner is more of what is causing the problem than the player base itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay,
That's
yeah.
my take on it.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I agree with your take. That is more effective than,
yeah,
I would say, going in like SpongeBob SquarePants, kind of, like aggro SpongeBob.
Yeah.
It does not help to go in as aggro SpongeBob.
Yeah, you want to be slow and methodical about it, right? And find ways of giving yourself time to think, while also making sure that he's talking too, because if he gets to be just quiet and smile and make faces at you the whole time,
like to be
it's
dead,
not very helpful.
Like to be honest with you, half the time I'm not even looking at his facial expression.
Right.
Like half the time I'm not even fucking looking
audience,
at it,
but the
audience is.
But Whick and the audience are.
I mean, in my opinion, I should feel like that shouldn't be a factor that matters, but again, it's a different world. I need to go in with a completely different perspective and play to what this world is asking for.
Sure.
Okay?
Well, let's keep going.
Just for the audience's sake, there was a popular streamer or commentarist, a woman, basically, who said that she's going to stop playing Arc Raiders because it's too PvP focused and things like that. Is that what you're referring to?
I didn't specifically refer to that, but like there are multiple. Some people stop playing because they got fucking tired of the fucking toxicity. Some people stopped playing because they didn't like what the game was becoming. It turned into a fucking battle royale instead of being like a social hangout. They dislike mechanics of it. There are multiple reasons. There was no one reason.
Because it benefited them to turn it into something, a part of the culture war, that it wasn't. And now people have turned themselves off of it and have become disinterested. It happens to plenty of different games down the sphere of influence.
Carl, shut up. Carl, shut up. Carl, shut up. You already answered the question. Carl, shut up.
Experience this, although the single-player game experience shouldn't be directly affected by that because no one can gatekeep you from single-player games. But the multiplayer...
Again, Carl, shut up. I should have already stopped talking like
people actually
15 seconds ago.
Part of the player base to actually becoming a part of the community. People who don't want to actually get into the community become a part of the community. Become a creator for the community. They decide to yuck people's yums. Let me finish. They decide to yuck people's.
I literally should have stopped talking by now.
You keep interrupting me, and I keep having to explain things. Just be quiet. Give me a second. I'm gonna finish, and then you can talk. They get into it for something other than just experiencing the game, having fun with the game, playing the game for what it is, and make it into something entirely fucking different, and ruin it for everyone. To the point where people are like, stay out of my game, we don't want you here. You're not actually here to be a part of this, you're here to try and get viral and get clicks off this.
So, I should have already stopped talking at this point, because I'm giving him way too many opportunities for him to have ways to start attacking me. But at the same time, the point that I'm making overall should have been summarized much shorter, and is 100% correct. Yes, people did stop playing this game because of being harassed, or because of the culture. Being harassed because of the grief. Oh, it's much worse than that, but I'll get there. Getting off the game because they're being bullied out of it because it's become too toxic PvP, like what Tarkov is. Tarkov players, like the Burnt Peanut, coming to this game and bringing their hardcore attitudes to it, and deciding the culture says this is Tarkov light, and therefore we will play like it's Tarkov.
Right.
Thus pushing casual players away from it because it becomes too hardcore. And yes, there were multiple examples of people being griefed out of the game in this way, but it's worse than that.
Yeah.
There were people who have been cheating both ways since the beginning. Using glitches to glitch into loot rooms. Using glitches to kill players. Glitching outside of bound inside of extraction rooms to kill the players and then glitch back inbounds to take their loot. Using and abusing bit glitches in general.
The problem with that train of logic though is it doesn't really have anything to do with feminism or women in gaming. Like Burnt Peanut's a guy, right? And a lot of this is associated with like this is kind of like more toxic bro behavior than anything that has to do with feminism, right? Like so it kind of is more of a tangent than a connected point, you know?
In normal circumstances, if it weren't for the information that's relevant that I didn't get to bring up, which is, again, a theme that is a problem. The Burnt Peanut is, again, an Hassanid. So he is a safe person. He is going to do things that look like, oh, this is just a dude bro being a dude bro. Like, what does this have to do with feminism? It's like, no. He behaves and does all of the things that a feminist would do. He does all of the things that a leftist would do. He does the like this is a yikers. He does the tone policing. He does the postulation for attention.
But in this situation, is it the tone policing that is ruining the game for people, or is it the dude bro behavior?
It is the cheating and then hiding behind the dude bro behavior to say it is the explanation. Really, honestly,
but the cheating's also not tone policing, right? So,
no, it is
so
not.
It kind of makes it basically it's hard to make a case that relates to the topic, right?
Mm-hmm. In general, I think what I should have done here entirely is I shouldn't even tried using this game as the example. I should have used a much more blatant one that was much more undeniable.
I think, yeah, from what you've described, I mean, like, it sounds like the Phantasy Star, was it Phantasy Star Online that you were talking about earlier?
Yes.
That one sounds like it would have been a good one to remain focused on, because from what it sounds like, the moderation team explicitly was doing things in a way to, with a political motive to, you know, kick out specific players.
Mm-hmm. Now,
clarity of hindsight.
Yes. So, I can ultimately cede, like, a couple of things, but the general point of these things will ruin a game, not only the political aspect of shit, not just the socio-political aspect, but the sad way to describe it, woman behavior that would make people be like, nigga, are you my mom? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you acting like this? And leading with the nature of, I can do this because I'm X. So the normal example would be, I can do this because I'm an expert. I can do this because I'm the content creator. I can do this because I'm the bigger figure. I can do this because I'm the moderator. Extending off of some social context that then gleans them authority to do it. And from the position of, well, I'm the popular person, people are going to agree with me over you, but they're also doing these behaviors in the back that are considered very explicitly politically motivated and explicitly feminine and designed and derived from the social longhouse sense that enables them to do so. Like, that point is relevant and real, but I probably should not have used arc raiders to divine it. Because
just this specific, like that concept definitely happens, like the whole like tone policing longhouse kind of backbiting behavior. But yeah, just in this particular example, it's not a great one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can keep going.
Shall we go on?
Yes.
Which leads to people basically creating their own circles and enclaves where they purity test each other constantly. I think it's fucking cringe and gay, because you should be able to have fun playing the games you want to play. But people are refusing to address that, because they instead want to point the finger at somebody and say, no, it's not the girl who caused this. No, actually, it's this who caused this. No, actually, it's Huck who caused this. No, it's actually this guy who caused it. Instead of just saying, bro, play the game and have fucking fun. Why are you so mad? Now I'm done.
That sounds like I'm being mad, but I'm just being energetic there.
Is your argument that purity testing video games is bad and that you just to take this
obviously
as one as okay? So
like, yes, purity testing in games is bad. You should be willing to play games because they are fun, not because you need everybody to behave socially the same way you want them to.
Video games? Is that your argument?
Yeah, because everyone's purity testing, just like you said you would purity test people. Quote, I'm going
and yes, literally, it is bad, and therefore you're pushing people out by doing this. I should be able to criticize you for doing this the same way that Destiny and Asmongold, or rather, how Asmongold was being purity tested by Destiny for doing it, and you doing it to him as well.
Who plays a bunch of video games, they can dictate how other people enjoy video games is fucking stupid, and I'm absolutely gonna waive my hours in video games.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think it's time for me to go to bed.
It's okay,
All right,
Seth.
have a good one.
It's okay, Seth. It's not an airport. You don't have to announce your arrival and departure, but I appreciate you telling me.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Alright. Alright.
Argument that, especially if they play one video game, that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So yeah, of course I'll do that. But yeah, in general, people should just play video games and enjoy it as it is. What is wrong with that statement?
Because you went back on yourself and effectively did the exact same thing that you're criticizing.
The thing that is wrong with the statement of you should harass people is that you already started the statement off with you should harass people. You should not. It's a self-selecting process. Yeah. I, as a person... Go ahead.
Still, it's a self-relevant statement, yeah. Like, you should not harass people, just in general.
Like, number one, you should not harass people. Number two, you should not harass people into playing your video game. Number three, you should not harass people out of playing your video game. Number four, you should not harass people because you think they're not a true gamer, because actually, they are a gamer. They are playing games. However, a deeper caveat there would be, are you a tourist? Do you belong here? Do you have lots and lots of years of experience and notoriety? Are you a public figure? Are you a person that basically can promote this game on these reasons? Are you a person that is paid to do so? Are you a person that actually gets people into playing it because of these factors? Those would be the reasons why it's wrong. Because you come along the wrong person, and you effectively push somebody out who would have become the new Asmongold, because you thought they weren't deserving as a gamer. At the same time, you choose to harass somebody because you say, oh, I'm going to put my hours against your hours. I know for a fact I have more hours in this game than him. I know for a fact I have more hours in every game than him. So when you come to a game that you don't have the hours to belong in, so if it's okay to harass people, that means they can harass you and you need to get the fuck out because they said so. Because they have more hours than you, right? Does that feel fair to you? Do you feel like as a consumer who plays content, you should be able to do that?
It's elitism.
Yeah, it's elitism, full straight up.
At one point that he's explicitly an elitist.
Well, you see, then it would be like, okay, so elitism says that I get to go band for band, right? On the table, band for band, get the fuck out of my game. Conversation over. So obviously, you should want people to come play your game. You should want tourists to come play your game. It's about whether or not they respect their time here and they respect the people here that becomes the caveat. That's what makes it important. That's what makes it actually something to argue for.
Yeah, I think there's good tourists and bad tourists, right? Like good tourists are like people who are just maybe passing through, and maybe they end up staying for a long time.
They have a
and, like,
timeshare.
Bad tourists.
They have a timeshare.
Yeah.
They have a gaming timeshare.
The bad tourists are the
niggas that bring the rent property down.
They're the political ones.
Yeah, they're the people that bring the rent down.
Want.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
The people that are the good tourists, which is not irrelevant, they are the people that have a gaming timeshare. So I already described the nature of the seasonal format of content that usually proliferates this kind of material. There's multiple games that are like this in all genres that have that kind of feature. But in the example of the ones that he engages in, the type of people that come in are going to come in, stick their head in to see the content. They aren't going to be they're not going to be monitoring spirits to have done so. They're not only getting invested because, oh, I heard there was drama here. I heard that this game on LSF is the place to be to find lolcow shit, which is what people did with WoW and OnlyFans, right? Because that entire group of OnlyFans was put together to bring tourists from other games into WoW so that they could get the context of playing WoW as a social group. And the content was both them leveling their characters and playing the game together. There are people that effectively are coming here on a leased timeshare. They're coming to see the content. They're coming to experience it. It is encouraged by the company to do so with a free game weekend or some type of way for you to give a code to your friend to bring them inside. Like some games on Steam or any other digital storefront or even in-store will give you a duplicate code to give to your friends as like a friend pass. I know they used to do it in old box sets. I have a couple in my Diablo 3 box that were for World of Warcraft and for Diablo 3 specifically because it was a 4-player lobby co-op game.
Right.
It is the intention that you have the good tourists come in with their timeshare, and they don't disrespect the people, they don't disrespect the culture, they don't step on people's toes, they try to be good tourists, just like they would come to any kind of tourist attraction.
The problem is when you get tourists who come in with a political agenda and they want to warp the situation to match their preferences.
Yes.
And it's destructive because because of the fact that they are tourists, because they want you to warp the media to their preferences, but they're only going to be there a short time.
Yes. So it's like...
So you end up you bend over backwards to shape it to their interest, and then they leave.
Yes. Yes, 100%. There's so many memes that describe that, but the way that I would consider it in this situation is it's like moving across state lines to a new state and bringing the politics that ruined your state to where you came from. And then importing those beliefs.
I saw a great meme about that. It was like, it was like, hey there, I see you're from over there. Welcome to here. You left over there because you didn't like how there was. So please don't make here like there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like a basic, idea that, like, if you join something, join it for what it already is. Don't try to make it into something it's not.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is just going to keep occurring here when we keep talking about what I said is that we're going to find multiple instances of Carl shut up. I feel like I should have a timer on the screen of just simply Carl shut up. But yeah, I'm giving him way too many opportunities to be able to weasel his way around things that I'll say and things that I could be able to mention. But it is the case that you do not have and you should not encourage people to be elitist because of not only it will get people to not play the game, but it will actively kill your particular reach because then your game becomes notorious for being aggressive towards newer players. And that newer player is the market base that you're speaking to. Path of Exile 2 was specifically made by Grinding Games to be a onboarding game. You play Path of Exile 2 and it's a simpler, easier to get into experience that when you then have the interest, because the games are on 4-month cycles for content. When one game is in the middle of its 4-month league at the 2-month mark, the next league starts in the other game. So within like a week and maybe a half or maybe like another half month or so, Path of Exile 1 is going to launch another league. The last league's number was 3.27, which was Keeper's League. The league that comes after that is going to be 3.28. This is currently patch 4.0, Last of the Druids / Fate of the Vol. Fate of the Vol is the challenge league of the new content that's being brought to the game. The balance patch is 4.0, which is Last of the Druids, which introduced a new base character type to the game, which is the Druid class. The next patch after this one is going to be 5.0. Whatever happens in 5.0, it's going to be the balance patch and the challenger. It's going to be the challenge ladder league to go along with it. So, if the people who were intended to be brought into the onboarding beginner-friendly game get a idea, a sense, a hint, or even a swift that they are going to be harassed for playing the game socially, the first thing most people are going to do is just be like, oh, I'm going to get harassed for playing the game? Well, I'm just not going to play it. Even though you can play this game asymptomatically, where you interact with nobody, because half the appeal is that you're getting loot in your own maps, but you're in a bigger player base with a bigger marketplace that is affected by those decisions, similar to WoW. This game is designed for that aspect where a single person could play to their heart's content, but it is designed that you are interacting and playing with other people as a group, because there's more benefit and there's reward to doing so. The same way that you could try to play through an MMORPG, not OSRS. OSRS is a bad example because it was designed to be done solo, with the exception of raids. If you were to play through a normal MMO...
Yeah, originally.
Originally the case. There are some people who have managed to do so, and those people are freaks of fucking nature. But they're also broadcasters and content creators, which kind of goes to the sense of the point, because that's just part of the culture. Anyways, besides the point. If a game that is an MMO is being played by a person in a single-player context where they are never grouping up and never interacting with people because they have the preconceived notion that they will be harassed and they will be punished for engaging with other people socially, that is a bad thing to implore onto the marketplace and into the ecosystem, not just for that game, for the community. And I always make sure whenever this comes up,
it's going to make it to where a community never forms, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I make a point to describe the difference between a player base and a community. The community cannot form if the player base can't talk to each other. So, if you look at the political scene as a case, you could say that the sphere of influence around Whick TV and Whick himself, even if Whick himself is not this, it is made up of people that are of this mindset that you can harass people whenever you want, it's politically good, it's fun to do for content, and it's best when it's done live on camera. They could never interact with the greater sphere of the internet, because the greater sphere of the internet would tell them, that's not how we do things here, you came from, it's like you just said, you came from over there, welcome to here, but the people in the space there that they're coming from to here would say, you do that fuck shit over here, we're gonna beat your fucking ass for it. So if you move to a place that doesn't have that culture, that doesn't have that behavior, and you bring over the behavior of your particular shibboleth, they're going to tell you, listen, you came from over here, don't do that over there. You behave by our social rules and contexts. You do our shibboleths, not yours.
Don't make here like there.
Yes.
Exactly.
And
you came here because it's not there. Don't make here like there.
Yes. And half of that problem, if you allow the elitism to be the controlling factor that says, oh no, it's good to do that, actually. It makes me money. It's like, okay, have fun in a nice, safe, empty space, which is exactly what happened with Phantasy Star Online 2. They killed the base game where nobody had an interest for the update, because it all happened during a major update to the game. It destroyed any person's interest, because it's like, I could go back, but the people who are there don't appreciate me and don't like my money, because they banned all my friends, or they might have banned me. Therefore, why would I reward them with my money and with my market share property of my market interest of my dollar? Why should I reward them for bad behavior? Fuck them.
Right.
If you have enough people make that decision, your game dies. We have seen that happen time and time again. There's no arguing against that kind of thing. That's not a good thing to promote. It's better to actually promote gatekeeping and bullying for that purpose. So, if you're going to gatekeep in that way, which is different than just being an elitist, you're doing it in the behest of the interest of the player base and for the community. It is an HOA. It is a homeowners association, which is why I liken it to a timeshare. I am telling you, for the good of our gated community, do not behave this way. We give you a warning, then we start citing you for it. Basically, the entire time, mentally, I'm citing him for this shit, like, nigga, that's a violation, nigga, that's a violation, nigga, that's a violation, nigga, that's a violation. Because this is never something somebody who actually believes in a player base and believes in how a community forms would ever support. He is revealing his hand here, in my mind. And I'm attacking him on that purpose and being so aggressive about how I'm doing it because you have openly said this as such. Why are you denying this? You believe that this is good in investment. So if I do what you say I should do, you're going to turn around and say, look at how angry he is. Look at how mad you are. which they definitely do in the proceedings of the conversation. But before this even happens here, no, bullying is not okay, because then I get to bully you out, and we have nothing to talk about. See how that works, dumbass? That should be obvious from the right of it. Why would you say that it's not? The only way that you could is that you do not see the problem, or you are for it, and you want to bring that kind of shit here, and I am inherently against it.
See, I think that he's probably for it, but that's just that might be my own biases expressing themselves there, but I don't know. Carl, on that note though, I have to go. I have work tomorrow. I will timestamp this to you, and we will have to pick this up again.
Oh no, I agree. Let me write it down. Where are we right now?
We are 21:39.
Good, perfect case example of the long man. 3 hours and 33 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, we also went through a lot of.
We went through a lot of prep work. Yes, we did.
A little prep work. We had to establish a little bit of background before we could really get into the meat of it. So, so the Asmongold video itself, and then our Relevant's own stream just to give us some background.
Yes. So you write down the timestamp. I will then write down a timestamp inside of a Word file, and then we'll continue from there. Because this is fun content, and it's enlightening content to talk about.
I will post in the chat here the timestamped video link. And the timestamp. What was the timestamp again? I posted the link I posted.
Oh, it's already yeah, that's right. You took that feature, you click the button, and it actually puts it on the timestamp. Got it. Okay.
Yep. So you just save the URL, and it should have it. URL URL. I say URL because I don't know, I'm a weirdo.
Okay. So yeah, we will pick up on this another day and another time when you have the time to. I'm down for that. That's
right
fine,
on, dude. Yeah, absolutely. I think we can keep going on it until such a time as something else comes up that you'd rather go on.
Carl Whick debate PIP link. Put that in my documents, and I have that saved. Okay. I don't suppose you already have a date in your mind already, and then if you don't already, you'll find one at a later date. Yeah.
Might be able to do like next weekend. We'll see.
Okay.
Hopefully, like next weekend, I shouldn't have to. So like this week, I would have done it earlier, but I had to come in and work a half day because one of my guys was out. But I shouldn't have to next weekend. I might go visit my little brother on one day next weekend, but I mean that's only one day, so.
Okay.
All right, man.
Thank you, everybody who's attended. I am Single Player Carl. This is Woomer. This is my chat room. And we will see you next time. Same Carl time, same Carl channel, same Carl anger. Same Carl yapping. Good night, everybody.
All right.